Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Cultivation Family, starting by taking a concubine and practicing the Sun and Moon Sutra. Chapter 41. Seeing that all four people agreed, Zhou Daocheng was unambiguous and began to use the spiritual magic to condense spiritual restraints under the care of Meng Yushan and others. The four Lin Yuan people knew their own situation, so they did not resist and accepted the control of the spiritual magic. When Zhou Daocheng's spiritual power completely entered their sea of consciousness, their life and death were completely controlled. After spending a quarter of an hour, Zhou Daocheng once again had 2 8th-level Qi refining and 2 7th-level Qi refining experts under his command. Their strength increased so fast that he himself found it incredible. However, after using the spiritual magic this time, there was an obvious feeling of dizziness in my mind. Zhou Daocheng understands that with his current cultivation level, it is impossible to use this spiritual secret method endlessly, because for Qi refining monks, spiritual power cannot be restored. Once it is divided too much, it will have an impact on future practice. After regaining his energy slightly, Zhou Daocheng looked at Lin Yuan and the evil cultivator leader and said, "We are all our own people now. Please introduce yourselves, so that we can get familiar with them." Lin Yuan held the meat skewers in his hand and grilled them on the campfire. He said casually, "My name is Lin Yuan. I am a casual cultivator in this area. His strength is at the 8th level of Qi refining. He has no immortal cultivation skills. That's probably it." The other two at the 7th level of Qi refining were in similar situations, and Zhou Daocheng just had a brief understanding. However, the identity of the evil cultivator is indeed a bit surprising. "My name is Qin Lai. I used to be a casual cultivator, but I have been in the immortal world to the south. I offended the Foundation building force Blackwater sect there, so I was hunted down all the way and fled here. And because I carried a wanted warrant on my body, I engaged in the business of killing people and selling goods." Quote. Qin Lai was honest and told the truth about his identity, which also aroused everyone's curiosity. "Oh, you still have a wanted warrant on you. What's the price?" Zhou Daocheng asked curiously. 500 low-grade spiritual stones. Zhou Daocheng thought for a moment and analyzed, the price is indeed a bit cheap. It's not worth handing it over. It's better to keep it and work on it. Can you please stop saying these words in front of me? Qin Lai couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Zhou Daocheng patted him on the shoulder nonchalantly. "No matter what you did before, since you followed me, let everything start again. Aren't you afraid that the Blackwater sect will implicate you because of my wanted order?" Zhou Daocheng glanced at him and asked, "Wear a black robe and a mask when going out from now on. You are only allowed to appear in this area. Who can recognize you?" "That's okay." After a brief conversation, Zhou Daocheng felt relieved after knowing that Qin Lai was not a bad-tempered person. Afterwards, everyone had a brief chat and got to know each other a lot. They stayed in the cave for one night before continuing on their way the next day. The rest of the journey went very smoothly, and no unexpected situations were encountered. The monsters we occasionally encountered were not too strong, and they were all easily dealt with. It took about 10 days to rush back to Balin Lake. Zhou Daocheng did not go back to the island directly. Instead, he took Meng Yushan, Lin Yuan and others back to the valley behind Balin Lake, intending to settle the newcomers first and arrange their future development. Entering the valley, Qin Lai and Lin Yuan felt the rich spiritual energy for the first time. They couldn't help but feel refreshed and their eyes lit up. "Is there a spiritual vein here?" Lin Yuan looked around in surprise and found that the environment here was surprisingly good. Not only is it surrounded by high mountains, the location is extremely hidden and difficult to be discovered by outsiders, but the internal terrain is wide and lined with many spiritual fields. What shocked him even more was that there was actually a first-order high-grade spiritual vein hidden here, making the spiritual energy in the valley extremely rich. Meng Yushan grinned and said, "If this is a wasteland, then why do we come all the way back to grow potatoes?" Lin Yuan choked and was speechless, but it was true. If he didn't have a station, he would be at home all over the world. On the other side, he has been silent. Qin Lai's eyes became brighter after seeing the environment in this valley. His life of hiding in Tibet all year round made him extremely insecure. A hidden shelter like this deep in the wilderness mountains is definitely a dream. The place of training. The first thing Zhou Daocheng did after returning to the valley was to go to the Lingquan pool to check the water quality in it. The spring water here flows from Balan Lake, mixed with the spiritual liquid in the eyes of the spiritual spring, and its quality can reach the first level. The spiritual water from this pool was used to water the Shengpin Lingtian before, and the quality was very good. After Zhou Daocheng looked at it, he found that there was no problem with the quality of the spring water, but the pool itself was too crudely constructed and the area was not large enough. If it is just to store water, it is barely enough, but if you want to cultivate green-bearded shrimps, it is obviously insufficient. Sir, I built the pool at random before. The materials used were not good enough and the production process was quite haphazard. How about renovating it? Meng Yushan asked. Zhou Daocheng nodded and gave instructions. Let Huangzhou and Zhang Yin do it and build a larger pond. The area will be about half an acre. The materials can be ordinary blue rocks from outside the valley. Ordinary bluestone. Is the quality too low? How about I go to Baihifang City again and buy a batch of first-grade medium-grade ore? Meng Yushan frowned and asked for his opinion. Zhou Daocheng waved his hand and explained. Although Qingyan is an ordinary rock, if it is soaked in a liquid with rich spiritual energy for a long time, its quality will slowly improve. After a long time, it will turn into a first-grade lower-quality Qingyan rock, and the effect is no worse than other minerals. I see. Meng Yushan suddenly realized it after hearing it. The information that Qingyan turns into Qingyan rock is unknown to ordinary casual cultivators. It is an important information that the Zhou family has explored for many years. In the Tianqi of the Zhou family, there are many Qingyan rocks, most of which have been transformed into Qingyan rocks, with qualities ranging from first-grade lower quality to first-grade upper quality. It is said that several pieces have reached the second grade, but Zhou Daocheng has not seen it with his own eyes, and he does not know whether it is true or not. But there is no doubt that if Qingyan is used to build a pool, the effect will definitely be very good, and even a batch of high-quality Qingyan rocks can be obtained in the future. Next, Huangzhou and Zhang Yin were arranged to go outside the valley with 2 storage bags to collect Qingyan. Considering that excessive mining would easily destroy the original appearance of this mountain range and attract the attention of outsiders, Meng Yushan asked the 2 to collect it at a farther distance. Although the distance is a bit farther, it will be obviously safer. As for the remaining people, Zhou Daocheng also made other arrangements and started to plant yellow thorn vines. For a long time to come, yellow thorn vines will be the most important spiritual plant and the core material for arranging formations. Its value is self-evident. Zhou Daocheng was particularly concerned about planting yellow thorn vines, so he pulled 3 Qi refining level 8 strong men over and gave them detailed instructions. He taught the 3 people almost everything about planting, including the characteristics of yellow thorn vines, the environment required for growth, the interval between watering and fertilizing, the judgment of health, the configuration of special growth liquid, the judgment of maturity, and even asked them to record everything to ensure that nothing was missed. These are all the key points of planting yellow thorn vines. You must pay attention to them at ordinary times. Of course, I will come to check from time to time. Zhou Daocheng maintained a serious attitude and looked at Meng Yushan and said, Old Meng, this matter is mainly left to you. Arrange people to guard it and don't let any accidents happen. Meng Yushan also nodded solemnly, no problem, just leave it to me. If there is any mistake, you can soak my head in wine. After explaining these things, a day passed and the sky darkened again. Lin Yuan, Qin Lai and others also dug a cave near the cave of Meng Yushan and others, and settled here completely. Zhou Daocheng returned to the island. After leaving for a while, the island looked a lot more desolate. After Zhou Daocheng cleaned it up casually, he carefully took care of the spiritual field and checked the growth of the spiritual plants. The crystal jade spiritual rice grew very well. There was sufficient water nearby and the sunshine time was long, which was very suitable for the growth of this kind of spiritual rice. However, Zhou Daocheng found that although the spiritual rice grew very lush, it was thin as a whole, obviously because of the lack of spiritual energy. The moon grass next to it was in a similar situation. The natural environment in terms of sunshine and rain was very favorable, but the main reason was that the spiritual energy was relatively low. There was nothing he could do about it, so Zhou Daocheng could only return to the underground cave and dilute a few buckets of spiritual spring water. With the watering of the spring water full of spiritual energy, the spiritual plants became visibly energetic and their breath was also strengthened a lot. It seems that in a few months, the moon grass and crystal jade spiritual rice will be mature. Looking at the tender green spiritual plants swaying gently in the night breeze, Zhou Daocheng was in a very good mood. This made him sigh. If there were no cruel world in the world of immortal cultivation, no intrigues among cultivators, and if he simply sought such a peaceful way of cultivation, perhaps it would be a very good life. But immediately afterwards, he couldn't help but smile with relief. Perhaps the original purpose of many cultivators is just to seek a quietness, but it is often contrary to their wishes. It is me who is sentimental. Return to the underground cave. The luminous stone emits a bright light, illuminating the not-so-spacious cave, and the spiritual spring eye reflects some flickering light spots. The black-patterned lotus growing in the spiritual spring eye has grown a bud, out of the initial dangerous period, and officially began to grow, full of vitality under the rich spiritual energy. As a first-level medium-grade spiritual plant, the growth cycle of the black-patterned lotus is very long. With sufficient spiritual energy supply, it takes about 20 years to fully mature. Of course, if the appropriate growth liquid can be configured, or formations, elixirs, and talismans are used to assist growth, the time may be reduced. However, conservative estimates suggest that it will take at least 10 years. This made Zhou Daocheng sigh. It was still very difficult to harvest the black-patterned lotus in a short time and earn spiritual stones from it. He also considered that if a wisp of innate purple qi was given to the black-patterned lotus, would it be possible to speed up its growth, or even break through the original limit like the green bamboo and become a spiritual plant of higher quality? It is possible. However, Zhou Chengyi no longer has a second wisp of innate purple qi. The previous wisp of innate purple qi was because it was the first time he combined with Zhao Yunji, so it directly condensed into a complete innate purple qi. Although they had it afterwards, they only accumulated a very small amount. Zhou Daocheng conservatively estimated that at this rate of accumulation, he would have to find Zhao Yunji at least 30 times. Moreover, the Sun and Moon Sutra is not able to operate endlessly. Each process of accumulating innate purple qi requires more than 1 month, which is a long accumulation process. If you want to quickly accumulate a whole wisp of innate purple qi like the first time, you can only find another woman with higher talent. Zhou Daocheng shook his head. This is something that can only be encountered and cannot be forced. Forget it. The road to cultivating immortals is long and difficult. It is not necessary to practice with the Sun and Moon Sutra. According to my current cultivation speed, it should not take many years to break through to the 9th level of qi refining, and even accumulate enough wealth to buy foundation building pills. Zhou Daocheng always believed that the path of cultivation should be steady, one step at a time. If you are greedy and reckless, although you can improve quickly in a short period of time, it will not be beneficial in the long run. He had some enlightenment in his heart. In just a few breaths of thinking, he seemed to be suddenly more open-minded. Even his cultivation, which had not improved for a long time, reached the middle stage of the 7th level of qi refining. Zhou Daocheng's spiritual energy was more abundant, and his information was a little heavier. He exhaled a long breath of turbid air, and his cultivation was more advanced. 4 Square Market, Zhou Family 100 Instruments Pavilion. Bang! The porcelain teacup fell to the ground with a crisp sound. The Ma family is really going too far. Humph! They actually restricted my Zhou family's transportation channel in Chang's River. Are they going to fight us to the death? Several elders said angrily, and the atmosphere in the hall was extremely depressing. The former owner of Beiki Pavilion, Zhou Shoujin, said in a low voice, "Since 2 months ago, the Ma family has blocked us. The team transporting magic tools has been attacked 3 times, and the loss is at least more than 2,000 spirit stones. 2,000 spirit stones are almost equivalent to a year's income." When everyone present heard this number, they breathed more heavily and almost tore off their vests completely. Zhou Shouyun, who is in charge of transportation, has the 8th level of qi training. At this time, his arm is wrapped in gauze, and his tone is slightly angry. Now when transporting goods, if there is no 9th level of qi training elders to send each other, almost all of them will be attacked by the Ma family. It's okay to lose magic tools, and at most lose some spirit stones, but these fools also hurt people, and many family members have been injured. The Ma family is too bullying, and this matter must be reported to the head of the family. It must not be let go. This matter has been reported a long time ago. What can the head of the family do? Now the Ma family is determined to go against us. Even if the head of the family comes in person, it will only be a temporary, urgent needs. Quote, alas, it was the girl from the Zhao family who caused the trouble. I really don't know what the family is thinking. They have to do it for a chi refining family. Bang. Enough. A childish and slightly majestic voice sounded. Zhou Daoqi put down the cup in his hand, and his slightly fat round face was extremely calm. Fourth uncle, eighth uncle, 13th uncle, you talk too much. Several elders looked unhappy and asked, Daoqi, what do you mean? Zhou Daoqi was not stage frightened, and his voice was surprisingly calm. The decision made by the head of the family does not need us to judge. If you have any opinions, you can directly raise them with the head of the family. This is indeed what he said, but, without waiting for the words to be finished, Zhou Daoqi continued to interrupt. Secondly, Miss Zhao Yunji is the wife of the sixth brother, my sister-in-law, and your nephew-in-law. Since she joins my Zhou family, she is a member of my Zhou family. This kind of the behavior of judging behind your back really shouldn't happen to your elders. Several elders looked stunned, not expecting Zhou Daoqi to say this. Since coming to Beiki Pavilion, Zhou Daoqi has spent most of his time practicing and occasionally taking charge of the shop, but most of the time he still relies on the ideas of a few elders. I didn't expect that this time, he would be so sharp. Dodge, what you said is indeed true, but you don't know how expensive firewood, rice, oil and salt are when you are not a family member. The family's losses this time are far beyond your imagination. Let alone earning 1,300 spiritual stones a year, it will be difficult for you to get back your money this year. Zhou Daoqi did not show any concern and said, since it has happened, there is no need to blame others. The most important thing is to solve the problem. Zhou Shouyun frowned and asked, Dodge, seeing that you are so confident, do you have a solution to the problem? Zhou Daoqi raised his eyes calmly, with a look that was too mature for his age. His slightly bloated body looked bigger than several elders. Elders, since the head of the family has asked me to be in charge of Beiki Pavilion, I will go all out. Next, if you act according to my plan, I can guarantee that Beiki Pavilion will turn the crisis around and even gain far more income than before. Dodge, you are still too young. Seeing that several elders still wanted to say something, Zhou Daoqi continued to increase his chips. When I left the family, I already asked the head of the family. I have full authority to decide all matters in Beiki Pavilion. If you have any opinions, you can ask the head of the family in person. An elder looked at each other, and finally showed a helpless smile. It doesn't matter, since the head of the family has agreed, then it's up to you. After hearing this, Zhou Daoqi also put away his serious expression, smiled on his face, and bowed deeply to the elders. There is no real conflict. The elders also think about the family. They are the older generation who have been working for the family all year round and dedicated their lives to the family. Out of his own heart, Zhou Daoqi still respects them very much. Sometimes, the older generation is still too stuck in the rules and it is difficult to bring about changes. Zhou Daoqi sat on the main seat, his round eyes revealing a profound edge, and said, Uncle Shoujin, you have been in Sifangfeng City for many years and have been in charge of Beiki Pavilion. I think you have accumulated a lot of contacts. It's barely okay, what do you think? Zhou Daoqi said calmly. Uncle Shoujin, please continue to find connections and try to open up the transportation channel of the Chang's River. Oh, I keep trying, but it's no use. No, every time we transport magic weapons, the Ma family can accurately grasp the time and carry out sneak attacks on us. There must be a reason for this. Could it be, there's a traitor in the family? Zhou Daoqi's mouth twitched, he glanced helplessly at his fourth uncle, shook his head and said, No, I mean, the Ma family should not be that well informed about the news. It is probably other small forces nearby who are monitoring us. Most of them use if you want money to do things, you can try to get in touch. Quote. I see, why didn't I think of it before? Zhou Shoujin suddenly understood and nodded thoughtfully. Zhou Daoqi rubbed his fat face. He really didn't know how his fourth uncle stayed in the position of the master of Beiki Pavilion. Could it be through the back door? Fourth uncle, I still want to advise you to do your best to do the best and don't be stingy with gifts. There is no harm in having good dealings with these small forces. I understand, your fourth uncle has not been fooling around all these years. You can eat, drink, and get a massage in a 3-piece suit, so you can rest assured. After saying that, Joe Shojin ran out carelessly. I'm really not too worried. Joe Douchi sighed. He had to feel relieved even if he was not worried. Then he looked at Joe Shoyun on the side. Eighth uncle, there will probably be no results from fourth uncle's place. Also, I have to trouble you to accompany me on another trip. Joe Shoyun, who was wrapped in bandages, smiled and said, don't say just one trip, it's okay to make 10 trips. But don't think your fourth uncle is careless. He is still proficient in human relations, so don't worry. I know. Joe Douchi stood up and stood with his hands behind his back. The point is not the fourth uncle, but the Ma family. You mean, since the Ma family chose to use this method to block our transportation channel in the Chang's River, it shows that they have been prepared for a long time and will not let us reopen it easily. We have to find another way. Joe Shoyun thought thoughtfully, but this waterway is currently the closest and fastest transportation channel. Joe Douchi's small eyes burst out with a bright light. Since the waterway is impassable, let's open a new one. Create a new path. Yes. Joe Douchi turned around and said, leave this matter to me. I have an appointment with someone this afternoon. Uncle 8, please accompany me there. Maybe there will be a turn for the better. Joe Shoyun was in a daze for a moment when he saw the chubby but high-spirited young man in front of him. Once upon a time, those children who were running around and shouting, 8 uncles and 8 uncles, all day long have grown up and begun to shoulder the responsibilities of the Taoist generation. Moreover, the confidence and courage shown by Joe Douchi at this time reminded him of the prodigies who had appeared in the family before. Those clansmen who had become the head of the family and became foundation-building masters might have been so outstanding when they were young. Yes, you are worthy of being the foundation-building seedling of my Joe family. Joe Shoyun muttered to himself, and a smile appeared on his face. At this moment, he had a vague premonition that this generation of the Joe family would be very extraordinary and might lead the family to a new height. Danyu Mountain Zhu family. Zhou Daobai bowed and said, Junior Zhou Daobai of the Zhou family, meet the head of the Zhu family. Zhou family, what do you want? Zhu Chengqin looked at the book in his hand without looking up. The Zhu family is also a foundation-building family, slightly stronger than the Zhou family. It has 2 foundation-building masters and a complete second-level alchemy inheritance. It is a famous alchemy family in the area. Therefore, the head of the Zhu family did not need to pay too much attention to Zhou Daobai, a junior. He was even willing to meet him once, which was a great honor. Zhou Daobai did not care, but said directly, I have heard that the Zhu family's alchemy skills are unparalleled, and no one within 100 miles can match them. I accidentally got a pill formula and want to sell it to the head of the Zhu family. Oh, a pill formula. Zhu Chengqin became interested and asked, what quality of pill? If it is a common pill formula, my Zhu family should not be short of it. Zhou Daobai smiled and handed an elixir prescription to Zhu Chengqin's hand. First-grade high-grade elixir prescription, Master Zhu, please take a look. Hearing the words, first-order high-grade, Zhu Chengqin's expression remained indifferent. As an alchemy family, the Zhu family had many first-order high-grade elixirs. If he had a second-order elixir in front of him, he might be more concerned about it. However, when he glanced at Danfang's name, his eyes suddenly lit up and he couldn't help but let out a sigh. Putting away the books in his hands, Zhu Chengqin leaned forward, picked up the elixir on the table and looked at it carefully for a few seconds, then his expression became serious. This is Xiaojiju elixir. Zhou Daobai smiled and said, yes, this is half a prescription. If the Zhu family is interested, we can discuss the next deal. If not, the junior will leave immediately. With that said, Zhou Daobai stood up and made a move to take away the pill recipe. Zhu Chengqin only thought for 2 seconds before holding Zhou Daobai's hand. Little friend Zhou, let's sit down and talk. This prescription is really good. What are you going to do? Hearing this, Zhou Daobai nodded and said, Master Zhu should know the value of this pill recipe. It is a substitute for the Foundation Establishment pill. Although the effect is not as good as the Foundation Establishment pill, the value is also self-evident. I want 5,000 spirit stones. Bar. After Zhu Chengchen thought for a long time, he said, my friend, the price you offered is too high. I have some understanding of pills like the Little Foundation Establishment Pill. The real name of this elixir is Condensing Spirit Pill. It has the function of gathering spiritual energy and can give the 9th level Qi refining peak monk a 10% chance of breakthrough. However, this elixir is not widely spread, and even many people they say it has been lost, but I didn't expect to see it here today. To be honest, if the price is 3,000 low-grade spiritual stones, I would just accept it. Unfortunately, if it is 5,000 low-grade spiritual stones, it is really not worth it. Zhu Chengchen said it very seriously, and Zhou Daobai nodded in approval. Since he took the initiative to sell the pill recipe, he had naturally done his homework and knew the situation of the Little Foundation Establishment Pill. What Zhu Chengchen said was all accurate and completely consistent with the information he collected. The Foundation Establishment Pill allows monks who are at the 90th percentile of Qi refining to have a 40% to 50% chance of breaking through to the Foundation Establishment stage. Even monks with high enough talent have a higher chance of breakthrough. The Condensing Spirit Pill can only increase the breakthrough probability to 10%, so it is called the Small Foundation Establishment Pill. Compared with the success rate of 25% and the success rate of 10% are already worth the risk for many people. Moreover, the price of Condensing Spirit Pill is relatively cheap, about 3,000 low-grade spirit stones, which is much more expensive than ordinary first-grade high-grade pills. However, the prescription of this kind of pill is not common, so it is rarely seen on the market. This kind of elixir, Zhu Chengchen added, and the value of this elixir is not as high as you think. For many families, it is also very important to be a monk at the peak of 90% Qi refining. Many people would rather buy the more precious foundation building elixir than I am willing to let my clan members die on the spirit condensation pill which only has a 10% success rate. Zhou Daobai shook his head and did not agree with this statement. Although what the Zhu family master said has some truth, the road to cultivating immortality is inherently difficult. Even if there is only a 10% success rate, it is still worthy of many small families and casual cultivators trying. After the words fell, Zhou Daobai was silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled and said, Master Zhu, I think the real reason that prevents you from making up your mind to buy is not these unfounded reasons, right? Oh, Zhu Chengchen showed a playful smile. Little friend of the Zhou family, then why do you think I don't want to spend a lot of money to buy it? I guess it should be some kind of material for the Ningling pill. Zhou Daobai asked tentatively with a smile on his face. As soon as he said this, there was a hint of approval in Zhu Chengchen's eyes. Yes, the Ningling pill is indeed very good and one of the highest quality first-class pills. However, there is an unavoidable hurdle in the refining process. That is, it requires an extremely precious spiritual plant, which is difficult for even the foundation building family to find, and even if it is found, it is difficult to plant it on a large scale. Speaking of this, Zhu Chengchen couldn't help but show a look of regret. If this difficulty could be overcome, then the Ningling pill would be enough to help the Zhu family open up a huge industrial chain with its name of Little Foundation Establishment Pill. Just when he was regretful, he heard Zhou Daobai suddenly say, the kind of spiritual plant that the Zhu family master mentioned should be Ningyu root, right? If I can supply this kind of spiritual plant, can the Zhu family master be willing to complete this deal? Trade. Base. When Zhu Chengchen heard this, he stood up from his position and looked at the young man in front of him in disbelief. His strong emotions fluctuated and the powerful aura around him couldn't help but leak out. Little friend, what do you mean by this? Do you have a way to grow Ningyu roots? Zhou Daobai was not frightened by the momentum and still sat calmly. Not bad. Zhu Chengchen's pupils shrank and his expression kept changing. My little friend, this is no joke. Are you really able to supply Ningyu root? Seeing the other party's serious expression, Zhou Daobai also suppressed his smile, took out a white jade rhizome that was covered with soil and was not yet fully mature, and placed it in front of Zhu Chengchen. This is Ning jade root. Is this Ning jade root that was just pulled out of the soil? You fool, you actually waste this precious spiritual plant like this. After a brief inspection, Zhu Chengchen showed anger and looked at Zhou Daobai with a look of hatred for iron. Zhou Daobai really didn't care. To be honest with Master Zhu, the real value in my hand is not the prescription of the condensing pill in front of me. I even bought this prescription at a huge price a few days ago. Zhu Chengqian got it right and said thoughtfully, so, your real trump card should be the method of planting Ningyu roots. No, Zhou Daobai shook his head, spread his hands and said, on the one hand, I want to sell the elixir to Senior Zhu first. After all, this elixir cost me a lot of spiritual stones. He didn't lie about this. Just to purchase this elixir prescription, he spent 4,500 spirit stones, most of which were borrowed in the name of his father and grandfather. Sold to the Zhu family for 5,000 spirit stones, the price was already very fair, and there was not much money to be made at all. What really makes money is actually the follow-up Ningyugan. On the other hand, I will not sell the planting method, but will sell the mature Ningyu roots to the Zhu family. We can form a long-term cooperation. After saying this, Zhu Chengqian fell into deep thought. After a long time, he made up his mind and said, I want to plant Ningyu roots. You can give me a price. As long as it is not too much, I can satisfy you. Not buying 30,000 low-grade spiritual stones. Zhou Daocheng's expression remained unchanged. I won't sell it. Zhu Chengqian gritted his teeth and looked at Zhou Daobai. Are you sure you can supply Ningyu root for a long time? If it weren't for the long-term benefits of Ningyugan, why would I, Zhou Daobai, go to all the trouble to come and discuss cooperation with the Zhu family? Besides, I am a member of the Zhou family in Tianqi Mountain, and I have a clean identity, so I cannot possibly do anything that would disgrace my family. Hearing what Zhou Daobai said, Zhu Chengqian no longer had any doubts and said firmly, I will pay 50,000 low-grade spiritual stones and sell me the method of planting Ningyu roots. Zhou Daobai still only replied with 2 words, not for sale. This is already the highest price. I'd better accept it as soon as it's good. Zhou Daobai shook his head. Master Zhu, I have already said that we do not sell the planting methods, only the mature Ningyu roots. If it is really impossible to achieve this, then I can only discuss cooperation with other people. Zhu Chengqian couldn't help but frown. He didn't expect that the young man in front of him would be so determined and refused to give in at all. He couldn't even be moved by 50,000 low-grade spiritual stones. At the same time, he was also considering in his mind, weighing the pros and cons of this matter. As the head of a well-known alchemy family, he knew the value of the Ningling pill very well. If this deal was left alone, the man from the Zhou family could sell the pill prescription and the Ningyu root. For other alchemy families, the consequences would be something Zhu Chengqian was absolutely unwilling to face. After a long silence, Zhu Chengqian sighed and asked, I can cooperate according to your request. The elixir will cost 5,000 spirit stones and the jade root will be purchased from you, but I need to give you a discount. If according to the market price, a first-grade high-grade jade root would cost about 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones. Coupled with other elixirs and the loss rate during the refining process, the cost would be at least 2,500 spiritual stones. The price of condensing spirit pill is only 3,000 low-grade spirit stones. If the cost is not controlled, it will be difficult for the Zhu family to earn spiritual stones even if they have the conditions to refine the spirit condensing pill. Zhou Daobai had obviously thought about it, and said with a smile, Master Zhu, the market price of Ningling root is 1,000 spirit stones, but I can sell it to you for 500 spirit stones. Zhu Chengqian did not show any joy. After a brief conversation, he already knew that the young man in front of him was not simple and could not give up such a huge benefit for no reason. Tell me about your conditions. What do our Zhu family have to pay? Zhou Daocheng said. I can supply 10 condensing jade roots every year, and all of them will be sold to seniors at the price of 500 low-grade spiritual stones. However, I will take away 2 of the final 10 condensing spirit pills. As soon as he said this, Zhu Chengqian frowned and thought quickly in his mind, what if he bought it for 1,000 spiritual stones? Condensing jade root. Each condensing spirit pill can earn 500 low-grade spiritual stones, 10 pieces as 5,000 low-grade spiritual stones. But if they trade according to Zhou Daobai's method, the Zhu family can earn 1,000 spiritual stones for each one, and 8,000 low-grade spiritual stones for 8. Although the Zhu family's overall strength is stronger than that of the Zhou family, they can produce 8,000 more low-grade spiritual stones a year, which is also a very objective amount of income. For Zhou Daobai, Cultivating a jade root requires 700 low-grade spiritual stones, most of which are consumed by special growth spiritual liquid. So for him, if he sells it at a price of 500, he will lose 200 spirit stones for each condensing jade root, which is equivalent to spending 2,000 spirit stones to buy 2 condensing spirit pills. This transaction method was profitable for both parties. Zhu Chengqin gained greater profits, while Zhou Daobai obtained the precious spirit condensation pill. After sorting out the interests involved, Zhu Chengqin nodded slightly and said, "I agree to your proposal. I hope we can have a happy cooperation in the future." Logically speaking, the conversation should have ended here, but Zhou Daobai suddenly scratched his head and said, Can I ask you, senior, to borrow some spiritual stones first?" "What?" Zhu Chengqin's face twisted. "We haven't done business yet, but you ask me to borrow money first. And I will give you 5,000 spiritual stones for each purchase, right?" "That's true, but cultivating the spirit condensing roots is not easy and requires a lot of materials, so I need to ask you to borrow 3,000. Zhu Chengqin looked strange. "Why don't you borrow it from your house?" Zhou Daobai smiled meaningfully and said, "This transaction is purely a cooperation between myself and the Zhu family. It does not rise to the level of the Zhou family and the Zhu family, so I don't want the family to know." Zhu Chengqin was thoughtful, took a deep look at the former young man, and nodded invisibly. "It seems that this generation of the Zhou family has a remarkable person. Okay, I will lend you this spiritual stone." "Okay, Master Zhu's kindness is appreciated." Zhou Daobai bowed, completed the transaction, and left the Zhu family. Arriving at the foot of the Zhu family Danyu mountain, a figure walked out. It was Zhou Shorong, the 7th elder of the Zhou family, and Zhou Daobai's uncle. "Daobai, you seem to have a big plan in acquiring such a large amount of spiritual stones." Zhou Shorong frowned slightly, and there was worry and relief in his words. Zhou Daobai just smiled and said nonchalantly, "What the head of the family wants is not to be humble to each other, but for us to gain experience and bring changes to the family. If Daocheng and Daoqi are capable, I will naturally be willing to assist them, but if they have no real talent, then why not let me, the eldest brother, support the Zhou family?" His tone was full of confidence and calmness. Zhou Shorong was slightly startled, and then smiled. "That's fine, just do what you want. By the way, how are you and Daocheng developing in Balin Lake?" Mentioning his 6th brother, Zhou Daobai frowned slightly. "I don't know, Daocheng has been staying on his island every day recently, and he should be practicing step by step. However, with the resources of his island, if he wants to meet the 1,300 spirit stones required by the family leader, it should be more difficulty. And the 4th brother, Daji's recent situation should not be too good. He has been attacked by the Ma family forces one after another. I don't know if the family's business in Sifangfang City can be maintained. On the contrary, it's Yunji's sister-in-law. I recently saw her raising silkworms on the island. It's a good business, and the final income should not be low." After saying that, Zhou Daobai shook his head and said with a smile, "But don't worry about me, they all have their own paths, maybe they are working hard secretly, especially that boy Daocheng, he is upright and majestic, and he is a good prospect at first glance." Quote, White Scale Lake. Zhou Daocheng secretly rowed the boat and arrived at Zhao Yunji's island. "Miss Yunji, I have some doubts about my cultivation. I wonder if I can have a talk at night and ask for advice." Zhao Yunji raised his eyebrows, and the veins on his forehead twitched slightly. Looking at the sincere eyes outside the door, his chest felt tight all the time. She still remembers that the last time Zhou Daocheng had doubts about his cultivation, he came to her to solve his doubts, but the process was more special. After hesitating for a moment, she confirmed, "Is this really an exchange and practice?" Zhou Daocheng said seriously, "Yunji, I, Mr. Zhou, have acted openly and above board throughout my life and never lied. The mist is lingering, the moon is misty, and the night is dark tonight." 30 minutes later, his breathing was slightly heavy and his voice was nasal. "You seem to have a lot of cultivation problems that you have accumulated. I am a person who sincerely seeks the truth. It is normal to study the exercises and practice diligently every day. It is normal to have more problems and confusions. How much older are you than me?" Zhou must thank Zhao Yunji for his generous teaching. Zhou Daocheng said in a sincere tone. Zhao Yunji took a deep breath. his chest rose and fell continuously before he suppressed his emotions. After a while, he said helplessly, "Cultivation is the right path. I understand, but I really can't come here often. I'll come back to communicate with you next time when I'm confused again." Quote. Zhao Yunji couldn't help but rolled his eyes and kicked Zhou Daocheng out of bed. "I'm telling you not to come here." Zhou Daocheng didn't care. He stood up with a smile and started to put on his clothes. Although he couldn't completely ignore the affairs between men and women, he was not a greedy person. Moreover, the two parties are Taoist lovers, and it is okay to get together occasionally. This is human nature. "Miss Yunji, do you have any needs for your cultivation recently?" Zhao Yunji frowned. "Didn't we already?" Zhou Daocheng quickly interrupted. "I mean serious cultivation." "You know it's not serious," Zhao Yunji said angrily. He simply wrapped himself in a thin coat and gauze skirt, put on his hair full of black hair, got off the bed with a slightly tired look, and walked out of the small wooden house he built. Zhou Daocheng followed him out. The island was larger and the aura on the island was richer. And because it was in the center of the lake, the fog was thicker. Looking around, it was shrouded in layers of thick fog, hazy in the night. And silence. On the island, the spiritual fields are already full of crops. The first-level low-grade spiritual fields are planted with a kind of mulberry tree. Zhou Daocheng doesn't know what kind it is, but it should be the specialty of the Zhao family, and the velvet silkworms especially like it. The white mulberry grown in the first-level mid-level spiritual field is exactly the kind that I went out to find before. It has been planted now and is growing very well. However, Zhao Yunji's main development direction is not to grow spiritual plants for sale, but to breed velvet silkworms. Zhao Yunji walked in the cool night breeze and came to the planted mulberry trees. He said with some worry, "Gu mulberry has a long growth life. Even if the environment here is very good, it is still too difficult to grow and mature in a short time." Quote. Gu mulberry. Zhou Daocheng thought thoughtfully. Although he had never heard of this kind of mulberry tree, he also knew that the time for planting tree-like spiritual plants was generally not short, and most of them took decades or more. Although this is only a first-grade low-grade mulberry tree, it is not easy to fully mature within a year or two. Don't your Zhao family have a unique growth liquid to accelerate ripening? Zhao Yunji shook his head. There is only the growth liquid of Bai Mulongkui, and Gu Mulong is grown naturally. At most, it can be equipped with some general growth liquid, but the price is relatively high. Isn't there any way to accelerate ripening? No. Zhao Yunji straightened his hair, turned around and said, "But I heard that there was an underground exchange meeting in Baihifang City recently, and there were 3 mature mulberry trees in it, but I don't know the details." Private communication meeting. Is it reliable? Not sure, but you can try. Zhou Daocheng's eyes moved slightly. So are you planning to go to Baihifang City recently? Are you going with me? Zhou Daogong shook his head decisively. No. I still have to practice. He just came back from Baihifang City a few days ago. The journey back and forth takes more than half a month. How can he have time to run there again? However, it would not be a good idea to refuse directly. After all, you have just lifted your pants and haven't covered your body yet. If you eat and drink, it will be easy for people to criticize you. After thinking for a few seconds, Zhou Daocheng still accepted the matter. Well, don't go to Baihifang City yourself. The journey takes nearly a month. You might as well practice here and I'll find someone to help you. Take a look, if there is Gu Sang, just bring it back for you. Zhao Yunji raised his soft eyes and showed a smile of success. I'm sorry to trouble you, it's good to have someone under me. Zhou Daocheng shook his head helplessly, and then he realized that Zhao Yunji had no intention of going by himself at all. He was trying to trick Meng Yushin and the others. Okay, I'll bring it to you when it arrives. Zhou Daocheng stretched and planned to row back to the island. Although he had only been here for more than half an hour, he was really tired. As soon as I got on the boat, I heard a cold voice from behind. If you come again next time, please remember to inform us in advance. Zhou Daocheng returned to the underground cave and looked at the extra wisp of innate purple energy emerging from his body, his face full of joy. Although there is still a long way to go before forming a complete innate purple energy, as long as you continue to work hard, work conscientiously, and often talk and practice confusion, you will succeed sooner or later. he has already felt the benefits of the innate purple energy. The quality of the purple energy green bamboo has recently reached the second level low grade. Moreover, the spiritual energy formed when breaking through to a new realm made the environment of the entire underground cave even better, and even vaguely improved Zhou Daocheng's cultivation level by a few points. Coupled with the benefits of running, sun and menstruation, today, he has just reached the middle stage of the 7th level of Qi training and is already approaching the late stage of the 7th level of Qi training. Zhou Daocheng has a very clear plan for himself. That is, cultivation and formation will go hand in hand, and the two will complement each other. Open double angle bracket Wu Tu Kun Yu Gong close double angle bracket relies on time. It is practiced step by step. Although the speed is not fast, it is steady. On the contrary, the formation needs to be accelerated. The purple spirit bamboo has broken through to the 2nd level, which is more than enough for setting up the 1st level top grade Bai Ling sword formation. Moreover, the other Bai Ling bamboo shoots have also reached the middle grade. The shells of the bamboo shoots gradually broke open and turned into emerald green bamboo. It is expected that it will soon reach the 1st level top grade and meet the conditions for setting up the formation. Compared with the formations such as the falling stone formation and the golden knife formation that are sold, the Bai Ling sword formation is more powerful. Zhou Daocheng intends to keep it for self-defense, and use it with his own strong defense to enhance his strength. However, in order to refine the 1st level top grade Bai Ling sword formation plate, Zhou Daocheng's formation technology is still far from enough. The most important thing now is to stabilize his own technology at the 1st level middle grade. Thinking like this, Zhou Daocheng collected his drifting thoughts, looked at the formation book in front of him, and studied the 1st level medium quality thorn vine formation carefully. The large number of yellow thorn vines planted means that this formation will need to be refined and sold for a long time in the future. The next morning, Zhou Daocheng finished a night of formation learning and felt extremely tired mentally and physically. It seems that it is still very necessary to supplement food and sleep. I can't stay up late like this in the future. Rubbing his sore eyebrows, Zhou Daocheng went to the valley early. There are still many things to deal with today. The valley has transformed from a desolate and uninhabited mountain range into a well-organized and hidden residence. The clear spring flows, and the green-bearded shrimps swim freely in it, having completely adapted to the environment here. Under the watering of the spiritual field, the soil here is also full of spirituality and has been planted with yellow thorn vines. Zhou Daocheng looked around and saw that Huangzhou and Zhang Yin were taking care of the spiritual field, while the other 2 7th level Qi refining monks were trimming the debris in the valley, but the others were nowhere to be seen. Where are Huangzhou, Meng Yushan and the 3 of them going? Sir, Brother Meng and the others are out hunting monsters. There are no spiritual grains planted in the valley. Our food still has to be obtained from monsters. Zhou Daocheng slapped his head and then remembered that he was so busy practicing that he forgot to eat. For immortal cultivators, food is indispensable. Even if they reach the Zifu stage and nominally have the ability to live without grains, they still need to eat food. Weaker monks eat food with weaker spiritual energy content, so there will be impurities, which are the spiritual rice and monster flesh and blood they eat today. And powerful monks can directly feed on the spiritual energy in the air to satisfy their own needs while swallowing and exhaling, thereby achieving fasting. But the principles of both are actually the same. They both need to absorb spiritual energy to replenish the body's energy. Zhou Daocheng planned in his heart that it is still necessary to plant some spiritual rice in the valley. This is very important for daily practice and life. He cannot go out to hunt monsters for food every day. A day or 2 is enough. Over time, it will inevitably affect practice. Even if the family hunting team goes out to hunt monsters, they will always bring spiritual rice as food. Through the communication stone, the 3 men of Meng Yushan were called back. Not long after, I saw 3 people walking from the forest in the distance, carrying 2 first-level mid-level monsters in their hands. With the strength of these 3 people, it was very easy to hunt the monsters with each other. Sir, what's the reason for calling us back? Zhou Daocheng went straight to the point and arranged for Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan to go to Baihifang City. On the one hand, it is to buy the mulberry grains Zhao Yunji needs, and at the same time to buy some first-grade high-grade spiritual rice seeds. At the same time, if you see some items necessary for daily life, you can also buy some. As for Chin Lai, because of his special status, he was stationed in the valley and minimized going out. After he finished explaining, he saw that the two people did not leave immediately, but stood there as if they had something to say. Zhou Daocheng frowned. What's wrong, Lao Meng? Is there any problem? Meng Yushan shook his head and said, Sir, we just discovered something in the wilderness not far away. Oh, what's the matter? Meng Yushan looked slightly solemn and said, It seems that two forces discovered a hidden mineral vein and started fighting over it. Zhou Daocheng's expression changed and he quickly asked, How far is it from us? Have you been discovered by them? Our location is hidden and has not been discovered, but the mine is only a dozen kilometers away from us, very close. Zhou Daocheng's breathing became heavy. At this distance, other forces actually discovered a hidden mine. This was not a good phenomenon. Once the value of the mineral vein is high, they will inevitably establish a base here, and there will inevitably be conflicts and friction with the Zhou family. Bailin Lake is too far away from Tianqi Mountain, so it is difficult for the family to provide effective support. Once conflicts arise, the consequences will be disastrous. Lao Meng, have you seen their identities clearly? Meng Yushan nodded and said, I saw the clothes they were wearing. One of them was from the Spirit Snake sect, and the other was wearing a sky blue torn robe. The clothes were embroidered with white cloud patterns. They should be from a certain family, but I don't know, no. Zhou Daocheng nodded silently. It should be from Mo Yunshan's Qi family. After figuring out the identities of the two forces, Zhou Daocheng also fell into deep thought. Zhou Daocheng had also heard about the Spirit Snake sect for a long time. It was a powerful sect in the nearby area. The sect leader was a strong man with a third-level foundation. He also owned a second-level spirit snake monster, and his strength should not be underestimated. The Mo Yunshan Qi family, the family that discovered Bailin Lake at the same time as the Zhou family, did not expect to appear again now, which made Zhou Daocheng feel a little wary. The strength of this family is also not weak, with two strong foundation builders, and it is also a family of medicinal pills. However, among the alchemy families in the nearby area, the Mo Yunshan Qi family has a weak inheritance and average alchemy skills, so its competitiveness is relatively low. In comparison, the Zhu family of Danyu Mountain is more proficient in alchemy and occupies a larger market share. Weighing the strength of the two parties, Zhou Daocheng only felt a headache. No matter which side they were, the Zhou family could not afford to offend them. Once they establish a presence here, it will not be a good thing for the Zhou family. Especially the Spirit Snake sect, which has no friendship with the Zhou family. If it discovers the existence of White Scale Lake, it is very likely that it will take action to snatch it away. Only Zhou Daocheng, Zhou Daobai and Zhao Yunji cannot stop it. What makes Zhou Daocheng even more troublesome is that once the valley and the underground spiritual spring are discovered, everything he has done these days will be in vain and his great future will be ruined. He will never tolerate it. As if he had made up his mind, Zhou Daocheng said with caution in his eyes, This time we are going to Baihifang City, Lin Yuan, go alone. Go as early as possible and come back as early as possible. Don't waste time. Meng Yushan, you stay here, and keep an eye on the surroundings with Chin Lai. Tell me immediately if you find anything. Meng Yushan and the others nodded deeply, their eyes full of solemnity, even with a little sharpness. Because not only Zhou Daocheng was anxious, but Meng Yushan, Lin Yuan, and Chin Lai were even more angry. After being a casual cultivator for a lifetime, they finally found a place to stay, where they could practice stably and their lives barely improved. How could they be willing to lose all this? As casual cultivators, their ruthlessness is engraved in their bones. If they were a group of spineless people, they would not be able to get their status. So after Zhou Daocheng gave the task, several people nodded and agreed without hesitation. Meng Yushan asked in a low voice, Sir, if a conflict really occurs, do we need to take action to resolve them? Zhou Daocheng thought for a moment and said, Don't do it yet, I will go and talk to the Mo Yunshan Qi family. If we can work together to expel the Spirit Snake sect, maybe we can coexist peacefully. Zhou Daocheng is relatively relieved about the Mo Yunshan Qi family. After all, Bailin Lake was sold to the Zhou family in the name of the family, and they are unlikely to tear their faces and rob. If the two sides can reach a cooperation, maybe the matter can be resolved peacefully, which is good for both parties. However, the iron must be hard to forge. Zhou Daocheng still plans to improve his strength as much as possible in the near future, and it will not be too late to contact the Mo Yunshanqi family when he can't hide it anymore. After all, the two forces competing for the mineral veins should take a long time. Whether it is fighting or coordinating with each other, it will take a lot of time. If you can take advantage of this period of time to upgrade your formation skills to the first level and set up the Bai Ling sword formation, you will still have a certain amount of confidence even if you face these two foundation building forces. So next, Lin Yuan rushed to Baihifang City. Meng Yushan and Qin Lai were stationed in the valley, while Zhou Daocheng devoted himself to learning the formation. However, he still thought highly of himself after all. It was a bit unrealistic to want to directly learn the first-level high-level formations before he had fully mastered the first-level mid-level formations. Helpless, Zhou Daocheng had no choice but to focus on the first-level mid-level thorn vine array again. When purchasing yellow thorn vines before, Zhou Daocheng purchased several mature yellow thorn vines in advance. Their quality was first-level and mid-grade, just enough to be used to arrange the thorn vine array. The golden sword formation previously arranged as the simplest among the first-order mid-level formations. It is a purely offensive formation and can only be regarded as an introduction. Spiny vine formation has both attack and control effects, and even has a certain defensive effect when used properly, which is much stronger than the golden sword formation. But similarly, the difficulty of arrangement is not generally high, which is a big challenge for Zhou Daocheng. Every day that followed, Zhou Daocheng meditated in the underground cave, and even the daily food was delivered by Meng Yushan himself. For an ordinary formation master, it would take several years to advance from a low-level first-level formation to a mid-level formation, and to fully learn the more difficult parts of the first-level mid-level formation. But Zhou Daocheng has a strong understanding and has a natural advantage in this area, so the time is reduced a lot. It only took more than half a month to successfully learn the thorn vine array, and the first time it was deployed, it was successfully completed. Yellow-green sharp thorns burst out of the ground, flashing with sharp light. Under the control of the formation, they were like the muscular body of a snake, erupting with such powerful power that even the 7th-level qi refining monks did not dare to resist. However, the number of thorns in the thorn vine formation is small, only about 5 or 6, so the frequency of attacks is low, and the method of trapping enemies is relatively simple. The focus is more on the attack ability. If it is a first-level high-grade 100 vine formation, the effects in all aspects should be better, whether it is attack strength or control methods, all aspects will be strengthened. However, for monks in the late stage of qi refining, a set of first-level mid-level formations can greatly improve their strength. For example, Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan have little difference in strength, and they can only be considered evenly matched at best. But with Meng Yushan possessing a thorn vine formation, if he fought in the formation, Lin Yuan would have almost no power to fight back. In just a few breaths, serious injuries appeared on his body. Only after several attempts, Zhou Daocheng also discovered a serious drawback, and it was a drawback that existed in all formations. That is, controlling the formation consumes a lot of mana. If the formation master controls it personally, it consumes relatively less, but if it is controlled by an ordinary monk, it will consume 50% more mana. As a result, the advantages of the formation were greatly weakened. Lao Meng, if you defeat Lin Yuan with your formation, how much mana will you have left? Zhou Daocheng asked thoughtfully. Meng Yushan thought for a while and estimated, I haven't tried this yet, but there are probably 3 floors left. Zhou Daocheng nodded. This result was already considered very good. It allowed the two people, who were evenly matched, to win with an overwhelming advantage and still have 3 layers of mana left. However, Zhou Daocheng was also thinking, is there any way to reduce the consumption of the formation? It seems that no formation master has ever explored this issue. After all, formations require monks to control them manually. How can it not consume mana? It's simply a fantasy. But Zhou Daocheng looked at the spirit gathering array not far away, which was also slowly moving at the moment, absorbing the spiritual energy in the surrounding air into its interior. In a daze, Zhou Daocheng's eyes paused, and his thoughts were immersed in it. He seemed to see traces of the formation's operation based on the lines of the formation he had arranged. At the same time, the lines of other formations began to appear in his mind, and a mysterious feeling enveloped his whole body. His thinking seemed to be completely silent, and he was trapped in this unconscious thinking. The spirit gathering formation, the falling stone formation, the mist formation, the golden knife formation, the thorny vine formation, the jade spirit sword formation, there were even many formation patterns that he just glanced at and did not delve into deeply, all appeared in his mind together, and intertwined. At this moment, he stood motionless and his eyes became dull. Meng Yushin scratched his head, leaned forward curiously, and said with some confusion, "Hey, what's wrong, sir? Is there something wrong with your brain?" As he said that, he was about to reach out and pat Zhou Daocheng on the shoulder, but Qinlai grabbed him from behind and said in a cold voice, "If you don't want anything to happen to you, don't touch him." "What's up, Lao Qin, what's going on, sir?" Qinlai frowned, a trace of shock flashed in his eyes, and he said with some disbelief, "Your Excellency seems to have entered a special state, as if, an epiphany." Epiphany. Meng Yushin and Lin Yuan also felt a little thoughtful when they heard these two words. Qinlai was not sure, but he still tried to explain. "I heard that some geniuses with excellent understanding will have special insights by chance, and will enter the state of enlightenment unconsciously. This state is extremely rare. Most of the time everyone will gain something. So that's how it is." Lin Yuan suddenly realized. "I heard that many of the predecessors created skills, secrets, and spells, which were realized during the epiphany." Meng Yushin looked surprised. "I didn't expect that the adult's understanding is so high. It's really not simple." Qinlai nodded slightly, and couldn't help saying, "With such talent, the probability of breaking through the foundation in the future is not small, maybe we can also get some benefits." Zhou Daocheng had no idea what was happening outside, and his mind was completely immersed in countless array patterns. The operation of the thorn vine array consumes a lot of mana. The gathering spirit array has the function of absorbing spiritual energy. Can the spiritual energy absorbed by the gathering spirit array be supplied to the thorn vine array? Can the golden blade condensed by the golden sword array be attached to the thorns of the thorn vine array? Can the golden sword condensed in the golden sword array use the spiritual energy gathered by the gathering spirit array? All kinds of ideas emerged in his mind, and he thought and deduced at a very fast speed. This kind of question is extremely naive in the eyes of many formation masters, and they don't even want to look at it. Even many ordinary cultivators will sneer at this. After all, two sets of formations can indeed be arranged in the same position. For example, in the underground cave before, there were three formations: the rock formation, the earth defense formation, and the fog formation. Each of them operates independently and performs its own functions. However, Zhou Daocheng did not have these common sense of cultivation, so he thought deeply. Even, some new ideas were born. Putting different formations together does not allow them to merge, nor can it allow the effects of the formations to be superimposed. Even formations with different attributes and different operating modes will affect each other. But is it possible to combine different formation patterns to create a new formation that has the functions of two formations at the same time? For example, the spirit gathering formation and the earth formation defense. The spirit gathering formation is responsible for gathering spiritual energy, and then supplying it to the earth defense formation, serving as the spiritual power supply core of the earth defense formation to ensure its longer operation. As long as there is spiritual energy around the spirit gathering formation, the earth defense formation can continue to operate, and even the quality becomes higher in continuous nurturing. Ordinary formations, if you want to operate for a long time, you need to continuously input spiritual energy or use spiritual stones to supply energy. But if this idea can succeed, it will perfectly solve the problem of spiritual energy supply. And the combination of different formations will also bring different possibilities. His thoughts began to churn. Unconsciously, the formation diagrams of the gathering spirit formation and the earth defense formation emerged in his mind. Every detail of the two formation diagrams was extremely clear, and under the guidance of consciousness, they slowly merged together. It was not a forced patchwork, but a true fusion. Connect the details of each line and ensure normal operation. This process is extremely complicated. Even for the lowest level formation, a slight change in a tiny detail may cause the entire formation to collapse. Fortunately, Zhou Daocheng is now in the state of enlightenment, and his thinking speed is thousands of times faster than usual, enough to maintain high-intensity deduction. I don't know how long it took, and a new set of formation diagrams emerged in my mind. This is a new formation formed by combining two sets of formation diagrams. The quality is still the first grade inferior, but the formation pattern is more than twice as complicated, and a large number of connection points are intertwined, which means that the difficulty of arrangement has increased a lot, even comparable to the first grade middle grade. For ordinary people, walking here is the end, but the enlightenment is not over. Uncontrolled thoughts naturally enter the next stage, reconciliation and simplification. Optimize the details of this complex array diagram, and remove most of the overlapping, cumbersome, and useless array patterns, while ensuring that the array can operate normally. This process is also very difficult, and thoughts are like computers, running at super high speed. After a long time, a brand new array gradually became clear in my mind. The quality is still the first grade inferior, but the difficulty of arrangement is greatly reduced, just slightly higher than the Spirit Gathering Array and the Earth Defense Array. As for the function, just as Zhou Daocheng hoped, it perfectly integrates the characteristics of the Spirit Gathering Array and the Earth Defense Array. The Spirit Gathering Array is responsible for absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy and then supplying it to the Earth Defense Array, making the Earth Defense Array stronger and lasting longer. What's more shocking is that with the assistance of the Spirit Gathering Array, the demand for mana and spiritual energy is greatly reduced, and only a small amount of spiritual energy is needed to control it. Zhou Daocheng slowly opened his eyes, and the surprise visible to the naked eye almost overflowed. Success. He knew that an opportunity that he could not imagine was coming to him. In the field of formation, he opened up a new road, and it was a road that had never been seen before and would never be seen again. And this new road, he called it fusion formation. The fusion of formations and the more efficient use of formation patterns, this is fusion formation. With this epiphany, the general system of fusion formation has been roughly perfected. Zhou Daocheng only needs to feel it carefully, and a lot of familiar and unfamiliar knowledge begins to appear in his mind, and in the process of absorption, he has a deeper understanding of this technology. The whole process of fusion formation can be roughly divided into 4 steps: screening, combination, coordination, and simplification. Each step seems simple, but it is extremely complex and contains a lot of knowledge. In a few breaths, Zhou Daocheng integrated the huge knowledge and made it part of his memory. To prevent forgetting and missing, Zhou Daocheng rushed back to the underground cave, took out paper and pen, and wrote down all the content. Among them, it also includes the result of this attempt: the fusion formation of the Gathering Spirit Formation and the Earth Defense Formation. Zhou Daocheng called it Earth Guarding Spirit Formation. After recording everything, he also put it into practice. It happened that he had a set of Spirit Gathering Formation and a set of Earth Guarding Formation in his hand. Zhou Daocheng dismantled these two formations and planned to use the formation diagram to rearrange them. Although the process of creating the formation is very complicated, the difficulty of arranging the new formation created in the end is not very high, but it is slightly higher than before. This phenomenon means that the same number of formation patterns has a higher efficiency. Zhou Daocheng successfully arranged this set of Earth Guarding Spirit Formation after just a simple attempt. The next moment, a taller and thicker earth wall rose from the ground, continuously absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy. Even if it was destroyed, it would recover quickly with the help of spiritual energy. As long as the surrounding spiritual energy is continuous, the formation will not stop running, and in the process, there is no need to consume extra mana. It's really exquisite. Looking at the formation in front of him, Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but sigh, and the excitement in his heart could not be described in words. Since the Spirit Gathering Formation and the Earth Control Formation can be integrated, other formations can naturally do the same. Zhou Daocheng began to try, and his initial target was the first-level low-grade formations, such as the Spirit Gathering Formation, the Cloud and Mist Formation, the Falling Stone Formation, the Earth Control Formation, etc. However, after extensive screening, Zhou Daocheng found that these formations were not suitable for fusion with each other. Even if they were successfully fused, they would not have much effect. On the contrary, among the first-order mid-level formations, there are several formations that are not low in strength, and the possibility of fusion is relatively high, which is very worth trying. For example, the Flame Formation, the Evergreen Formation, the Poison Swamp Formation, the Golden Sword Formation, the Return Formation. These formations themselves can be integrated with the spirit gathering array, thereby obtaining a steady stream of spiritual energy with the help of the spirit gathering array, and possessing more powerful power, with a high probability of being able to compete with the 8th level of Qi refining. In addition to combining with the spirit gathering formation, Zhou Daocheng is also trying to integrate the other 2 formations. For example, the flame formation and the golden sword formation. Zhou Daocheng began to retreat, trying to start the first independent formation fusion based on the experience in his mind and the steps of merging formations. During the epiphany, it only took a quarter of an hour to complete this step easily, but now that I try it myself, the time and energy consumed are far beyond imagination. This retreat lasted for 20 days. It was not until all the reserved spiritual rice was eaten that Zhou Daocheng left the underground cave with unsatisfied intentions. The fusion of the flame formation and the golden sword formation was successful as expected. The new formation is called splitting gold formation. The first order mid-grade, the quality remains the same, but the attack intensity is greatly increased. Zhou Daocheng is not sure to what extent it can reach. After all, he has only completed the formation diagram and has not yet actually laid it out. He returned to the island in a good mood, but as soon as he came out of the underground cave, Zhou Daocheng saw Meng Yushan with a sad face. Seeing Zhou Daocheng come out, Meng Yushan's eyes were filled with joy and he trotted over quickly. "Sir, you are finally out of seclusion, but we are anxious to death." Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows and said, "What happened?" Meng Yushan sighed and said, "It's not that mine, but the 2 forces have finally become aware of our existence." Zhou Daocheng felt nervous. Have they found the valley? That's not true, but recently, the 2 forces have been approaching us vaguely. I'm worried that it won't be long before the valley will be discovered. Zhou Daocheng frowned. The mineral vein was so close to the valley. Even if he was careful, he would be discovered sooner or later, and he would not be able to hide. It's just that he was lucky, hoping that the other party would discover the valley later, preferably after he had reached the first level of high-level formation mage. But now it seems that there may not be enough time. Zhou Daocheng thought for a moment and called Qin Lai and Lin Yuan over. He took out a storage bag from his pocket and handed it to Lin Yuan. "Lin Yuan, here are his 600 low-grade spiritual stones, as well as 700 spiritual stones worth of monster materials and spiritual plants. Please help me go to Baihifang City again. According to my order is to purchase a batch of formation materials." These spiritual stones and materials were scraped out from Qin Lai and Lin Yuan before. When Lin Yuan heard this, his face turned green. "Sir, I just went there some time ago." Zhou Daocheng said seriously, "This matter is urgent. It affects whether we can hold the valley station in the future. You have to go if you don't want to." Hearing Zhou Daocheng's serious attitude, Lin Yuan also understood the priority of the matter, restrained his joking demeanor, and responded seriously, "Okay, then I will leave now and come back as soon as possible." Zhou Daocheng turned to look at Meng Yushan and Qin Lai, and arranged, "Qin Lai, you stay in the valley. If anyone comes near here, remember to only defend and not attack. Don't provoke easily to avoid conflicts. As for Lao Mang, you come with me to Mo Yunshan Kijia." Faced with a potential crisis, Zhou Daocheng did not intend to inform his family, including Zhou Daobai and Zhao Yunji who were also at Balin Lake. Even if the family is reported, the Zhou family may not have a good solution. Tianqi Mountain is too far away, and Balin Lake is deep into the uninhabited mountains, so it is very inconvenient to travel. What's more, the enemies are 2 foundation-building family heads who are stronger than the Zhou family. It's really not worth it to rashly make enemies just for a first-order mid-grade spiritual vein. But Zhou Daocheng knew that there was a second-level spiritual spring eye here, which was worth dozens of times as much as the first-level mid-level spiritual veins. His chances of breaking through the foundation building in the future depended entirely on this spiritual spring eye. He made up his mind to deal with it to the best of his ability. If there was really no way to solve it, it would not be too late to inform his family. After Lin Yuan left, Zhou Daocheng cleaned up briefly and took Meng Yushan to the Kijia station next to the mine. The distance was not too far, and although there was a dense primitive jungle blocking it, it only took half an hour to find the mine site. "Who are you?" "This is the residence of my Mo Yunshan Qi family. The rest of the gang should leave immediately, otherwise don't blame our men for being ruthless." Zhou Daocheng's expression remained unchanged and he said neither humble nor arrogantly, I am a member of the Zhou family in Tianqi Mountain. I want to meet your elders. Can I inform you? Tianqi Mountain Zhou family. The two looked at each other, hesitated for a few seconds, and said, please wait a moment, we will go and report. Then, before they could turn around, a voice suddenly came from behind. Haha, the Tianqi Mountain Zhou family are the ones who robbed my Qi family's residence. The voice was frivolous and cold, making Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but frown. Looking up, I saw a young man wearing blue brocade clothes approaching, with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, and an extraordinary bearing. The ownership of Balin Lake is the result of the discussion between the two families, and an agreement was signed. How can it be called robbery? Zhou Daocheng said in a low voice. The man's eyes flashed with cold light, and he snorted coldly, the fifth elder just acted on his own. The spirit vein and the station are the foundation of the family inheritance. It's really stupid to sell them for 5,000 low-grade spirit stones. Zhou Daocheng's expression did not change, but he was secretly surprised in his heart. This person dared to criticize the family elders in public, and the others did not say anything to stop him. It can be seen that his status in the Qi family is definitely not low. Then you want to break the contract? Of course there is no need. Since it is signed in the name of the Qi family, I, Qi Yunxiao, will not destroy the family's reputation. Changing the subject, the young man narrowed his eyes and said, however, it is still very good to let the family ancestors go to Balin Lake to get some benefits occasionally. Maybe you can find some good things. Just think of it as collecting some interest. I advise you, it's best not to have this idea. Zhou Daocheng's eyes were obscurely fierce, especially when he heard that the other party was going to Balin Lake. He was even more murderous. If the powerful people in the world discover the existence of the spiritual spring eye, what will be the consequences? It is very likely that the Qi family will tear up the contract without hesitation, forcibly kill Zhou Daocheng and others, and then throw the crime to the casual cultivators and secretly occupy this place. Thinking of this, Zhou Daocheng's heart seemed to be strangled, and he felt suffocated. Chapter 51. No matter what the result of today's conversation is, the Qi family of Mo Yunshan is like a sword hanging over Zhou Daocheng's head, which may fall at any time and destroy everything now. Qi Yunxiao's casual words have already made Zhou Daocheng alert. Hehe, are you threatening me? If so, then I really have to go to this Balin Lake. The young man sneered and said with contempt, a family with only one foundation building strongman, and an old thing with half a leg in the ground, I really don't know what the fifth elder thinks, and he actually trades with you. Even if he forcibly occupies that spiritual vein, what can your Zhou family say? Zhou Daocheng's eyes were solemn, unwilling to argue with this person, and his voice was as cold as the water in the abyss. I'm sorry for disturbing you today. Zhou said goodbye, but, give Mr. Qi a piece of advice, think twice before you act. Are you teaching me? Did I let you go? Qi Yunxiao's eyes flashed coldly, took a step forward, and drew the sharp blade in his hand. Zhou Daocheng was not interested in talking nonsense with this person anymore, so he turned around and left. Behind him, Meng Yushan snorted coldly, and the spiritual energy around him shook, instantly offsetting the attack. Then he glanced at the young man lightly, and then turned around and followed Zhou Daocheng. Watching the two people leaving, Qi Yunxiao did not stop them, but a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. This person is so young, but he has the 8th level of Qi refining. Go check his identity. All the way back to the valley, Zhou Daocheng's face was very gloomy. The conversation was very short, and the two sides did not even ask each other's names and identities. They were tit for tat in just a few words, and there was no time to talk about the station. The other party's attitude was also very clear. He did not take the Zhou family seriously at all. He was arrogant and conceited, making Zhou Daocheng's plan completely impossible to implement. Even the result of this conversation is likely to increase the probability of Balin Lake being attacked. If this young man has a high status in the Qi family and can really contact a strong person who is close to the foundation building, he is likely to put today's words into practice. This also made Zhou Daocheng alert, with a lot of thoughts in his mind. On the side, Meng Yushan dared not breathe, and after a long time, he whispered, Sir, your Zhou family is the same as the Qi family, both of which are foundation building families. Why is this person so arrogant? Strength is respected. Zhou Daocheng was silent for a moment, and replied lightly, for the foundation building family, even the gap of a foundation building strongman is very huge. Moreover, this person has an extraordinary status, and his words show dissatisfaction with the family elders. This may involve competition within the family. We are an unprovoked disaster. Meng Yushan nodded. Indeed, if it is a factional struggle within the Qi family, then we are really unlucky. Don't think too much, things have happened. If you want to really gain a foothold here, relationships and cooperation are secondary. The most important thing is your own strength. Zhou Daocheng said calmly. What should we do next? You go and check this person's identity and his status in the Qi family, and leave the rest to me. Quote. The two returned to the valley. Zhou Daocheng made a few instructions, asking Meng Yushan and others to reduce going out and practice hard, and then return to the island. Half a month later, Lin Yuan returned smoothly and brought back the formation materials Zhou Daocheng needed. The number of formation materials purchased this time was large, most of which were first-grade medium quality, and a small number of first-grade low quality and high quality, with a total of about a dozen sets. After enlightenment and understanding the fusion formation, Zhou Daocheng's attainments in formations have been further improved and his progress has been rapid. For ordinary formations, Zhou Daocheng's comprehension has become stronger, and he can master and arrange them faster. He only needs to practice more. Soon, we will be able to touch the door of the first grade upper grade. As for developing a new fusion array, it is relatively difficult. In addition to using the fusion of the spirit gathering array and other arrays, and the gold splitting array developed by the sudden enlightenment benefit, it is difficult to create other fusion arrays in a short time. And Zhou Daocheng's goal is actually the gold splitting array. This array formed by the fusion of the flame array and the golden sword array is only of the first grade middle grade, but its power is stronger than that of ordinary first grade middle grade arrays, and it can roughly reach the power of the 8th level of Qi training. For everyone in the valley, even the weakest Zhang Yin can barely control the gold splitting array. Gold array, not to mention Meng Yushan and others at the 7th and 8th levels of Qi refining. If everyone can be equipped with a set of splitting gold array, Huangzhou and others at the 7th level of Qi refining will be able to have the strength comparable to that of the 8th level of Qi refining. Zhou Daocheng, Meng Yushan, Qin Lai, and Lin Yuan are likely to be able to fight against the 9th level of Qi refining. With mutual cooperation, it is also very likely that they will kill the 9th level of Qi refining. If combined with other formations, the combat power will be further improved. In this way, Zhou Daocheng's small force can also gain a foothold in this area. As for whether there will be foundation building masters, Zhou Daocheng has already considered it. Even for the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family, foundation building masters are not easy to find. They are almost all stationed in important family bases and cannot be transferred around. Unless the mineral vein here is extremely valuable, it is impossible for foundation building masters to appear. At most, they can send 8th or 9th level Qi refining cultivators to take charge. Looking at the current situation, although this mineral vein has some value, it is far from reaching the level of asking foundation building masters to take action. It is just the threat of the young man that makes Zhou Daocheng always uneasy. Sitting cross-legged in the underground cave, Zhou Daocheng carefully examined the formation diagram in his hand. It was the new formation splitting gold formation that he created by using the method of fusion formation. If we can successfully produce a batch of gold splitting array plates, the overall strength will reach the 9th level of Qi refining, not too far behind the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family, and safety will be barely guaranteed. Zhou Daocheng sighed, and then he completely devoted his mind to the arrangement of the array. Long before, he was already familiar with the fiery flame array, the golden knife array, and the gold splitting array itself, and every link of the arrangement was deeply engraved in his mind. Now that he arranged it himself, it was just a test of his control ability and his proficiency in the technique. Zhou Daocheng maintained a steady mentality, and the process of refining the array plate went very smoothly. Only when he really started to arrange the fusion array did Zhou Daocheng deeply feel the power of this special array. Whether it is the complexity of the array pattern or the difficulty of arrangement, it is similar to the first level middle grade, but the power displayed is even more powerful. It took 2 months for Zhou Daocheng to complete the refining of the first set of gold splitting array plates. Finally, Zhou Daocheng grinned and showed a happy expression. He could not wait to input spiritual power, and the formation diagram slowly unfolded. In an instant, the entire formation was filled with violent energy. Zhou Daocheng originally thought that the two spiritual powers should be constantly colliding in the formation, and the flames and the golden swords would constantly impact to generate energy, thus causing damage to the enemy. But the actual situation was completely different. The formation looked surprisingly calm, with no explosive atmosphere at all, but a large number of irregular golden red sharp blades floating around, seemingly harmless to humans and animals. But in fact, Zhou Daocheng could clearly feel an aura that made the hair on his head stand on end. The golden red blade inside the formation is composed of two attributes, gold and fire. It is extremely unstable internally. Any slight collision will cause the blade to explode instantly. Once it explodes, it will explode with powerful force like thunder. Moreover, whenever a sharp blade explodes, it will instantly cause other sharp blades to explode together. The power of that moment is very terrifying. Zhou Daocheng conservatively estimated that in this kind of golden cracking formation, even the 9th level Qi training monks would have a high chance of being injured if they were unable to resist, let alone the 8th level Qi training monks. The joy on Zhou Daocheng's face could not be dissipated for a long time. He perfectly integrated the powerful attack methods of the flame array and the golden sword array, and integrated them into one, complementing each other, achieving the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2, which perfectly demonstrated the power of the fusion array technique, magic. The only drawback is that the golden splitting array will consume all the spiritual energy in an instant, so it cannot be used for a long time. But even so, using the cracking gold formation is a surefire way to make money without losing money. Huang Zhou, who is equivalent to the 7th level of Qi training, only needs to activate the formation to explode with the combat power of the 8th level of seriously injured Qi training. Zhou Daocheng believes that once this kind of formation appears in the city, it will inevitably cause a storm and cause a large number of powerful forces to rob it. This represents a huge amount of wealth. But after thinking about it, Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but smile bitterly. The most important thing now is not whether he can earn spiritual stones, but whether he can survive under the pressure of the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family. He is not yet confident that he can fight against the two major forces with just a set of first-level mid-grade gold cracking formation. Even if the two forces do not send out foundation building experts, there is a high probability that elders from the 9th level of Qi training will come, which is still very troublesome for Zhou Daocheng. In order to ensure nothing goes wrong, Zhou Daocheng must have the strength to fight against the 9th level of Qi training, and have at least 2 sets of splitting gold formation. Temporarily ending the retreat, leaving the underground cave and heading to the valley behind White Scale Lake. He found Meng Yushin and others who were practicing and handed him the first set of splitting gold formation. Everyone was still in awe of Zhou Daocheng's accomplishments in formations, but they couldn't help but be a little disappointed when they saw that it was just a set of first-level mid-level formations. After all, for a strong person at the 8th level of Qi training, although the improvement of the first-level mid-level formation is not small, it will not bring about a qualitative change. Zhou Daocheng didn't care too much. Only when they actually used the splitting gold formation would they know how powerful this formation was. As for the user of this formation, Zhou Daocheng had already made a decision. Meng Yushin would be the first to follow him. Since they knew each other better and were not weak in strength, he was naturally the most suitable candidate. After giving the array, Zhou Daocheng also asked about the recent situation. Meng Yushin took a serious attitude and answered cautiously, "Recently, we have been practicing in the valley in accordance with your request, and have not attracted the attention of other forces. During this time, the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family seem to have no energy. Take care of us." Zhou Daocheng asked doubtfully. "They don't have the energy to take care of us, their conflict is serious." Meng Yushin nodded in approval. Yes, it was just a small-scale conflict some time ago. Recently, the scale of the conflict is expanding, and it has reached the level of 20 or 38th level Qi refining experts. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but take a breath. Even for the Zhou family, a battle of this scale was considered very serious. Moreover, when the base camps of both sides are far away from here, they can still send so many strong men, so it shows the seriousness of the conflict. It seems that the value of the resources in this vein is not low. Zhou Daocheng showed a trace of sadness on his face, turned around and asked, who has the advantage between the two sides? It should be that the Qi family has a slight advantage. I have specifically learned that the Spirit Snake sect had conflicts with surrounding forces some time ago and lost a 9th level Qi training elder and several 8th level Qi training warriors, so it is a bit difficult now. On the contrary, the Qi family has strong troops and strong momentum. Meng Yushan frowned, and he knew very well that once the Qi family gained an advantage, it would be very disadvantageous for them. Zhou Daocheng's eyes were calm and he did not show any concern. Instead, he changed the subject and asked, how about I asked you to check the identity of that young man last time? Meng Yushan did not answer, but looked at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan has many friends among casual cultivators, so I left it to him to investigate. Where's Lin Yuan? Turning around, Zhou Daocheng looked for Lin Yuan in the valley. I found him sitting boredly by the pool, playing with the shrimps with a stick. This scene made Zhou Daocheng's veins jump. Seeing that Zhou Daocheng's face was wrong, Lin Yuan hurriedly smiled, patted his pants and stood up from the ground, saying, well, I have already asked. This person is of high status. His name is Qi Yunxiao, heir to the head of the Qi family. His father is the current head of the family. Grandpa is a strong foundation builder. As expected, Zhou Daocheng nodded. To be so arrogant, his status is naturally unusual. He is most likely to be the mainstay of the younger generation. What is even more unexpected is that a strong foundation building expert from the Qi family is actually his own grandfather. Zhou Daocheng secretly said that he was in trouble. Fortunately, the Spirit Snake sect was supporting him for the time being. Otherwise, if the Qi family really wanted to break out and attack Balin Lake, he would not be able to handle it. The competition between the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family will not end in a while. You will keep an eye on it and notify me in advance if you have any problems. Zhou Daocheng ordered Shen. Tell me about the things in the valley. How are you lately? Quote. What Zhou Daocheng called the valley was nothing more than everyone's cultivation, planting and breeding. After a simple check, it was found that the strength had not changed much. Only Zhang Yin had recently successfully broken through and reached the 7th level of Qi refining. Therefore, there are now 3 people at the 8th level of Qi refining and 4 people at the 7th level of Qi refining in the valley. The overall strength is not weak. Zhou Daocheng also personally checked the development of the valley. The 6 green-bearded shrimps have successfully settled in the pool. The water quality here is good and the concentration of spiritual energy is very suitable for survival. However, there is a lack of food. Because the pool environment is relatively clean, some insects need to be caught specifically for them. At the same time, in order to enrich the environment in the pool, Lin Yuan also picked some water plants from the White Scale Lake and planted them at the bottom to clean the water quality and create a suitable living environment. At the same time, some small fish fry were caught and placed in the pool for cultivation. Now they are all thriving in it, and by the way, they can enrich the recipes in the future. After Zhou Daocheng checked and found no problems, he felt relieved. He was worried before that these rough old men would make a mess of the valley, but now it seems that the situation is not bad. The yellow thorn vines in the valley are mainly responsible for the 4 7th level Qi refining monks. For this purpose, they were specially taught planting techniques. Compared with the cultivation of green-bearded shrimp, the cultivation of yellow spinach is more troublesome, and there are many details that need to be paid attention to. For example, if weeds grow around the repair, avoid robbing the soil of nutrients. Or prepare some common growth solutions to supplement the nutrients needed for growth. Clean up any little bugs that might be eating the roots, etc. There are dozens of requests, large and small, all recorded and checked every day to ensure the healthy growth of the yellow thorn vine. So usually, the 3 8th level Qi refining experts would occasionally go out, but the 4 of Huangzhou stayed in the valley almost every day, and there were all kinds of trivial matters that they needed to worry about. And they completed these tasks very well. Zhou Daocheng discovered that the yellow thorn vine grew very fast, and under the watering of the rich spiritual energy, it had reached the first-order mid-grade quality in just a few months. It's just that it's generally still relatively immature. Although it can barely be used as a formation material, the effect is not yet at its best and needs further training. As we all know, formations with different quality materials will have different effects. Similar to elixir refining and weapon refining, there are also very strict requirements for materials. If the age is insufficient, the finished product will be greatly affected, and it may even fail to be refined at all. It takes a lot of time to reach the first-order high-grade spiritual plant like yellow thorn vine, and it also requires a special growth solution. It is relatively difficult, but it is relatively simple to reach the first-order mid-grade. Zhou Daocheng thought about it and thought that it would not take long for the quality of the yellow thorn vine to reach the standard, and then he could start to arrange the first-order middle-grade thorn vine array. Moreover, there are a lot of yellow thorn vines, and they can refine a large number of array discs, which will bring huge benefits. Moreover, thorn vine formation can also use formation fusion methods to create a more powerful formation. It may have a chance to rival splitting gold formation. Zhou Daocheng is also extremely looking forward to it. Wandering in the valley, Zhou Daocheng suddenly saw that there were some other crops planted in other corners of the valley. They were scattered and not large in area, but they were quite rich in variety. Did you also plant these spiritual plants? There seem to be many kinds. Huang Zhou replied honestly. Yes, sir, some of them are spiritual plants that Brother Meng and others found when they went out. They are relatively easy to grow, so they brought them back. Most of them are first-order low-grade and medium-grade. Zhou Daocheng nodded silently. For Mengyu Mountain and Linyuan, they have been in the mountains in this area all year round. They know the environment here very well, and naturally know some spiritual plants that can be planted. However, among these crops, Zhou Daocheng also saw moonflower grass and crystal jade rice. Sensing Zhou Daocheng's gaze, Huang Zhou hurriedly explained. Previously, the moonflower grass and crystal jade rice on the island were mature, and we harvested and stored them according to your requirements. However, some of the quality was not up to standard, and it would be a waste to throw it away. I'll take it back to the valley and plant it here. Zhou Daocheng recalled that before he went into seclusion, he told a few people that if the moonflower grass and spiritual rice matured, he would ask them to apply for harvesting and brew moonflower brew. It seems that unknowingly, it has been more than half a year since we arrived at Balin Lake, and even the first batch of moonflower grass has matured. Time flies indeed. Zhou Daocheng smiled and patted Huang Zhou's shoulder. Well done. Sanggu has begun to take shape. You have made great contributions. Huang Zhou was stunned for a moment, then he bowed flattered. His serious look made Zhou Daocheng dumbfounded. Huang Zhou is a middle-aged casual cultivator who has experienced many hardships and is well aware of the cruelty of the world of immortality, so he always behaves cautiously. Although this makes his work efficient, it is not a good thing to maintain a tense spirit at all times. In comparison, Meng Yushan, Lin Yuan, Qin Lai and others are much better. They have more knowledge and confidence. Although they are usually respectful, they are relatively more comfortable. Then Zhou Daocheng also looked at the others and said in a relaxed tone, you don't have to be too upright in the future, just be more easygoing, and there is no need to call me, sir, anymore. It sounds too unfamiliar, and strictly speaking, you should not be older than me. I'm small. Lin Yuan spoke quickly and said familiarly, if you don't call me an adult, you are still younger than us. How about we call you a villain? Zhou Daocheng's eyes twitched, and his face darkened instantly. He's so kicking his nose in the face. With Lin Yuan's mouth, it's really rare to walk in the world of immortality without being beaten. Lin Yuan, do you think you are very humorous? Ah, ha 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 no, I just made a joke to lighten the atmosphere. Lin Yuan said with a big smile. Zhou Daocheng didn't bother to pay attention to him. This person's personality was like this. Although he was a little out of tune, his ability was still pretty good after all, and he could also add some vitality to Sanggu. Meng Yushan said at the right moment, since that's the case, how about we call you young master? Maybe it's more appropriate than sir. Zhou Daocheng thought for a moment and then agreed. At this moment, Zhou Daocheng suddenly frowned, looking towards the deep forest not far from the valley, and vaguely felt a violent fluctuation of spiritual energy. At the same time, the three strong men at the 8th level of Qi refining also looked over, with some doubts and caution in their expressions, as if they had also noticed something strange. This is the fluctuation of the battle, and it seems that the distance is not too far, only a few kilometers away. Qin Lai calmly deduced. Meng Yushan frowned. This distance, could it be the spirit snake sect and the Qi family? These fools are getting more and more outrageous. They have come to my grandpa's door. Do you want to go up and beat them? You don't need to look to know that the last sentence must be scolded by Lin Yuan. Meng Yushin looked at him like a fool. We don't even have time to hide, and you still want to go up and beat them. Do you want to leave here after you finish and resume your wandering life as a casual cultivator? Ah, I don't want to. We can discuss this matter again. However, this time, Zhou Daocheng did not deny Lin Yuan's idea, but after weighing the pros and cons in his mind, he made a decision. We can't hide all the time, let's go and see the situation. As he said, Zhou Daocheng walked directly out of the valley. This made Meng Yushin and others stunned, and after a little thought, they understood Zhou Daocheng's idea. The enemy is so close that there is no room to hide. They need to seek changes and ways to break the situation, not just hide. The 3 8th level Qi refining masters followed closely behind Zhou Daocheng, rushing all the way to the direction where the battle fluctuations came from. Feeling the fluctuations of the battle, Zhou Daocheng had a lot of thoughts in his mind, and suddenly an idea flashed through his mind. Maybe it is not necessary to cooperate with the Qi family. As soon as this idea appeared, it completely occupied my mind, taking root and growing deeper and deeper. For a long time, Zhou Daocheng was influenced by his inherent thinking and only regarded the Qi family as a partner for cooperation. On the one hand, it is because both parties are family forces. On the other hand, because they have had a cooperative relationship with the Qi family before, they naturally have a sense of closeness. On the contrary, it is the spirit snake sect. Since the two sides have never interacted with each other and are far away from each other, they do not know each other very well and have never thought about cooperation. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Zhou Daocheng looked downcast and seemed to have some thoughts in his mind. His eyes became brighter and he looked deeply at the place where the battle broke out. With an idea in his mind, Zhou Daocheng stopped on the spot. However, Meng Yushin and the other 3 couldn't react in time and rushed out several meters in an instant. Lin Yuan, who didn't pay much attention to the road, hit a tree directly. Stars flashed in his eyes when he hit it, and he almost stood up and cursed. Meng Yushin was also a little strange and asked, "What's wrong, master? Why did you stop suddenly?" Zhou Daocheng did not answer. He held his chin with his index finger and thumb. After thinking for a long time, he took out 2 black robes from the storage bag, threw one of them to Meng Yushin, and ordered without hesitation, "Put it on." Regardless of the doubtful looks from several people, he took out another black robe and put it on, wrapping his whole body tightly. Although Meng Yushin was confused, he still obeyed the instructions obediently. After he was dressed, he asked, "Sir, what are you doing? Killing people and stealing goods?" Zhou Daocheng glanced at him speechlessly and said, "Put down your bandit mentality, we must pay attention to win-win cooperation." Ah. Win-win cooperation. Right, Zhou Daocheng said. Both forces are stronger than us. Even if we are unwilling, we must cooperate with them to have any hope of survival. We do want to cooperate, but haven't we tried it before and they were unwilling? Meng Yushin said, stroking his beard. If you don't want to cooperate, then force it to cooperate. Zhou Daocheng's eyes flashed with sharpness, and he ordered, "After all, the Zhou family's power is too small to be taken seriously by them. Even if they talk about cooperation with the spirit snake sect, it will be the same. At most, just being humiliated. So we have a new identity. From now on, we will no longer appear as the Zhou family, but will change our name to Shanhaizong to participate in the subsequent cooperation and battles. Do you understand?" After saying that, the 3 of them were silent, with a little light shining in their eyes. Perhaps Zhou Daocheng never noticed that when the words, Shanhaizong, appeared from his mouth, the eyes of Meng Yushin, Qin Lai, and Lin Yuan changed inexplicably, and they looked at Zhou Daocheng with a deeper look. In the past, their identities were only Zhou Daocheng's subordinates. Strictly speaking, they were just thugs of the Zhou family. But at this moment, when Zhou Daocheng accidentally said the name Shanhaizong, it meant that their identities had completely changed. Completely transformed from casual cultivators and thugs to members of a force. Although this so-called Shanhai sect is just a casual statement by Zhou Daocheng and has not been recognized by other forces, at least this is a formal start. Zhou Daocheng and Meng Yushin dressed up to prevent their identities from being recognized by the Qi family, and then cautiously approached the battle area again. After just a few breaths of delay, the battle was almost coming to an end, and it seemed that the winner was about to be decided. As he approached, Zhou Daocheng heard screams and angry shouts coming from the distance. The thief of the Qi family dares to sneak attack on our spirit snake sect. You have the guts to fight us openly. You claim to be a prominent member of the immortal sect, but you actually do such a shameless thing. Are you really shameless? Then there was an old, cold voice. In the world of immortality, the winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. What are you talking about in an upright way? Have you been living like a dog for so many years? I am the deacon of the Spirit Snake sect. If you dare to kill me, the Spirit Snake sect will definitely fight to the death. Ha ha ha. This was followed by a burst of laughter, to the point of death. Not to mention a mere 8th level Qi refining deacon, we have killed even the elders. What can you do to me? Quote. The battle between the two sides was coming to an end, and the Spirit Snake sect was at a disadvantage. Many people had been killed and injured, and their defeat was certain. The Qi family is not that big, just an outing team, with only 2 8th level Qi practitioners and 7 to 8 7th level Qi practitioners. Qin Lai's voice was hoarse, and he whispered in Zhou Daocheng's ear, lowering his voice and asking, Master, what should we do next? Help the Spirit Snake sect deal with the Qi family. It's not necessary. Zhou Daocheng was unusually calm and said in a cold voice, showing goodwill will not make the Spirit Snake sect feel grateful, let alone actively seek cooperation. Only strength can make them bow their heads. Sir, what do you mean? Wait for the opportunity, follow my orders, and Meng Yushan, give me the golden splitting formation first. Meng Yushan was a little confused, but he still took out the formation. Sir. Bu Gongzi, I know that you are very accomplished in formations, but after all, this is only a first level mid-level formation. You want to scare the 8th level Qi practitioner. Or, it's still a bit reluctant. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Zhou Daocheng's mouth. This is true for ordinary first level mid-level formations, but my formation is not ordinary. The battle between the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family is still going on, but the direction of the battle has been determined, and most of the Spirit Snake sect's combat power is no longer capable of fighting. Only the deacons at the 8th level of Qi refining and a few strong men are still holding on, but they are already at the end of their strength. As the 2 Qi family members of the 8th level of Qi refining exerted their strength, they sacrificed a first-grade golden bell magic weapon, which radiated a powerful light, and the injuries of the Spirit Snake sect deacon continued to worsen, and he had almost no power to fight back. In just a few breaths, he was nailed to the ground by a long knife magic weapon. Taking your head should be able to exchange for a lot of contribution points. No, who is it? The Qi family cultivator was about to swing his knife to kill, but suddenly turned his head, his pupils widened and looked around, his eyes full of fear. I saw a golden red light rising around him, and the spiritual energy around him was attracted, and mysterious patterns slowly appeared, and condensed more and more clearly. When the pupils of the Qi family cultivator contracted, his nerves were tense, and he looked around vigilantly, his heart seemed to be tightened by a giant hand. At this moment, he had only one thought in his mind, he had met a master of formations. Being able to set up a formation around them without them knowing was enough to show his attainments in formations. As the formation was perfected, golden red blades began to emerge from the inside. They looked harmless, just floating in the air, flickering and flickering, like broken pieces of magic weapons. However, the Qi family cultivators did not dare to act rashly, for fear of accidentally touching the taboos in the formation. Who are you? We are from the Qi family of Mo Yunshan. If you take back the formation, we can forgive you. The Qi family cultivator pretended to be calm. Wah. Stepping on the fallen leaves on the ground, 4 people slowly came from behind. For safety reasons, Zhou Daocheng finally asked all 4 people to wear black robes. Meng Yushan deliberately lowered his voice and said, Who are you? Dare to run wild in the territory of my Shanhai sect. Are you tired of living? Although the voice was not loud, it was full of power and oppression, making the people of the Spirit Snake sect and the Qi family dare not breathe. The Qi family cultivator frowned slightly and asked with some suspicion, Shanhai sect. We have been here for many days and have never heard of the Shanhai sect here. Are you? Meng Yushan interrupted directly and snorted coldly, Do you think I am teasing you? The Qi family cultivator's eyes moved slightly, revealing a dangerous light. As far as I know, there is only one spiritual lake nearby, and it has been occupied by the Zhou family of Tianqi Mountain. Where is the so-called Shanhai sect? Hehe, those kids. I don't care whose family this was before, but now we Shanhai sect have the final say here. Seeing that Meng Yushan's momentum was not reduced, the Qi family cultivator did not dare to act rashly. After looking at each other, he asked tentatively, "May I ask who is the leader of this so-called Shanhai sect? What is his strength? Is it your turn to ask? Get out of here immediately, otherwise don't blame us for being merciless." Meng Yushan was extremely impatient, his eyes were full of ferocity, and a faint hostility emerged under the body shrouded in a black robe. The arrogant attitude made the Qi family look gloomy, but they did not retreat. Especially when they saw the quality of the formation, there was a trace of disdain on their faces. HMPH, do you really think that you can scare us with a first-level medium-grade formation and a few casual threats? As he said this, the Qi family cultivator had lost his patience and took a step forward. They were not arrogant. After the initial tension, they realized the quality of the formation and Meng Yushan's strength, and their fear was reduced a little. The Shanhai sect cultivators on the ground also went from the initial surprise to now full of disappointment. A formation and a cultivator of the 8th level of Qi refining are not enough to make the Qi family afraid. The atmosphere became tense. Zhou Daocheng took a step forward, and his slightly hoarse voice broke the atmosphere, saying lightly, "Shan Deacon, no need to talk nonsense, just kill them." The voice was slow and calm, with a suppressed momentum, and then he waved his hand casually in the puzzled eyes of the two forces. The next moment, the air seemed to freeze for a second. Qi Jia was about to speak, but his face suddenly changed. In the formation, a sharp blade suddenly emitted light, and the golden red energy shone more and more, and began to tremble slightly. The originally stable spiritual energy quickly boiled, and a chilling breath leaked out. Not good. Before he finished speaking, a loud bang exploded in his ears. Everyone felt dizzy, and with the violent vibration, their bodies immediately became unstable. This was just the beginning. The rupture of a sharp blade led all the sharp blades to tremble. Before everyone could react, they heard continuous explosions, and the terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations set off a huge gust of wind, pushing the people outside the formation dozens of meters away. The spirit snake sect was already seriously injured. Except for the deacon who reached the 8th level of Qi refining and could barely get up, the others only had one breath left. Now even the breath overflowing from the formation made them unbearable. They rolled their eyes directly, spurted out a mouthful of blood, and lay at the roots of the tree unable to move. The deacon of the spirit snake sect was shocked. He looked at the formation that was constantly bursting with energy, and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Then he looked deeply at the 4 black-clothed figures. He could feel the power in the formation, which had reached the 9th level of Qi refining. Even if he entered it at his peak, he would most likely be seriously injured. Once he was injured in the vitals, the probability of death was extremely high. This was beyond the concept of a first-level medium-grade formation. And the 4 black-robed men, and the Shanhai sect they mentioned, finally made him pay attention. These were just 4 ordinary disciples whose identities were unknown, but they could have such powerful strength. How powerful would the deacons, elders, and sect masters in their sect be? Quote, he roughly guessed in his heart that this was probably a foundation-building force, and a decent force. While thinking, the deacon of the spirit snake sect was secretly shocked, and slowly retreated to the back, trying to quietly leave in the chaos. But before he could act, a pair of big feet stepped hard on his back, and a cold voice sounded behind him, "Did you leave?" Quote, "Sir, I am from the spirit snake sect." Just when he was about to say something, he turned around and met Qin Lai's cold gaze. He swallowed his words and lay on the ground obediently. What shocked him was that the strength of the man in front of him was not weaker than when he was in his prime. He was an 8th level Qi refining expert. However, it was not only the spirit snake sect deacon who was shocked, but also Meng Yushan, Lin Yuan, and Qin Lai. The 3 of them were also confused at this time, looking at the rising golden fire power in the formation, and they were all stunned for more than 10 seconds. The energy that burst out in an instant just now, the air wave formed made their hair stand on end. This must be more than the level of the first level middle grade. Originally, they still disdained this set of first-level middle-grade formations, thinking that their young master lacked common sense, but now, all that was left was shock. Qin Lai took a deep look at Zhou Daocheng's back, and once again felt that this young man was unusual. If a dull person only thinks that this is a powerful formation, no matter how powerful it is, you have only reached the 9th level of qi refining. But Qin Lai has been in the world of immortal cultivation for many years, and his mind is very sharp. He immediately realized the horror. This is a person who has broken the limit of the formation and has a terrible talent in the formation. A first-level middle-grade formation is comparable to the 7th to 8th level of qi refining. This is not a random talk, but a talk of experience left over from a long time. Qin Lai doesn't think it's easy to break this rule. Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan may not have thought so much, but they also didn't come back to their senses for a long time, staring at the golden cracking formation with flames rising to the sky. The explosion lasted for more than a dozen breaths, and the time was very fast, but the effect was extremely terrible. Almost all the items in the formation were crushed, and the soil on the ground was also blown away by a foot by the powerful force. The 7th level qi refining cultivator only lasted for a few seconds before being completely strangled and his body was gone. The situation of the 2 8th level qi refining cultivators was also very tragic. One of them was near the center of the formation, bearing the most violent attack. After holding on for a few breaths, he could no longer withstand the continuous explosions and was eventually devoured by the flames and sharp blades. Another qi refining level 8 cultivator was outside the formation, with a first-grade upper-grade golden bell magic weapon to protect him, but he barely survived. When the energy in the formation was exhausted and the attack gradually stopped, the man was shivering in the corner, his clothes had been completely destroyed, and dense injuries covered his whole body. The burning of the flames and the strangulation of the sharp blade, he was seriously injured and unable to fight back. Even the first-level high-grade golden bell magical artifact had a crack. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but take a breath when he looked at the situation in the formation. The corpses had been burned to coke, the ground was deeply sunken, the earth, rocks and trees were turned into fly ash, leaving only some better quality magic weapons, and some wreckage after being destroyed. The power displayed by the splitting gold array was stronger than he expected, especially if it was done with mental arithmetic but without intention. Even the 9th level qi refining experts would probably avoid its edge. The only survivor, the Qi family monk, looked at Zhou Daocheng in horror. He wanted to run away, but his body could no longer support him and he could only curl up on the ground. Mo Yunshan Qi family, isn't it amazing? The cold voice fell, followed closely by a mountain of spiritual energy that struck the man's head hard. There was only a pop sound, instantly depriving him of his life. Seeing this scene, the deacon of the Spirit Snake sect couldn't help but feel nervous, and at the same time he became more and more curious about the identity of his former intelligence. To kill the Qi family monks so unscrupulously, he either had sufficient strength as a basis, or he had a bad mind. He did not think that the group of men in black in front of him was the latter. However, he couldn't think too much now, because he had already seen that the leading man in black was already walking towards him. Facing the indifferent eyes, the deacon of the Spirit Snake sect summoned up all his strength to shout, "Don't kill me. Our Spirit Snake sect is rich, so we can spend money to redeem me." Zhou Daocheng paused in his steps, secretly thinking that this person was quite smart, otherwise he wouldn't really know how to deal with him. He made an appraising gesture, glanced around, and said calmly, "What is your name, and what kind of force is the Spirit Snake sect?" Seeing that the other party did not take action directly, the deacon breathed a sigh of relief and said hurriedly, "My name is Chen Jinyang, and I am the deacon of the Spirit Snake sect." As for the Spirit Snake sect, seniors may not know something, but it is the foundation establishment sect near the Blackwater Swamp. Because the founder of the sect tamed a mid-level second-level spirit snake, it was named the Spirit Snake sect. Facing the pressure from Zhou Daocheng and others, this monk had no arrogance and wished he could answer 10 questions. Zhou Daocheng listened carefully in secret and carefully remembered the information about the Spirit Snake sect in his mind. This was important information and was of great significance to future cooperation. However, on the surface, he still waved his hands indifferently and said impatiently, "The strongest is only in the middle stage of foundation building. If you dare to act recklessly here, tie him up and take him back." Chen Jinyang was shocked and secretly thought that the identity of these people was indeed not simple. They actually didn't even pay attention to the spirit snakes and monsters in the middle stage of foundation building. Combined with their previous vicious methods, it seemed that the power behind them was indeed extraordinary. Chen Jinyang was brought back to the valley without any struggle and was very honest all the way. But what surprised him was that when they reached a mountain of earth and rocks, they stopped, looked around and found that there was no road here. Just as he was about to ask, he saw the leader running his spiritual energy, his right hand attached to the earth and rocks in front of him, and then the rocks in front of him trembled slightly and retracted directly into the ground. Chen Jinyang's eyes widened. After careful inspection, he discovered that there were actually obscure formation patterns on the ground. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that this force is definitely not weak. There are formations arranged at the entrance, and it seems that the strength is not weak. What surprised him even more was that this formation was always running, which consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Generally speaking, the formation is usually in a stopped state. Only when it is needed, mana or spiritual stones will be input to supply the energy required for operation. Only some extremely powerful forces with the support of powerful resources can maintain the operation of some important formations for a long time. But now, just the defensive formation at the entrance can be maintained, which is enough to show the opponent's wealth. But he didn't know that the formation in front of him was the first fusion formation created by Zhou Daocheng, the Earth Imperial Spirit Formation. Because the spirit gathering array supplies spiritual energy, it can be maintained continuously. The earth and rocks are used to block the only entrance, making the valley more hidden and preventing monsters and monks from approaching. What he did unexpectedly made Chen Jinyang even more wary of the identities of Zhou Daocheng and others. Chen Jinyang spoke carefully and asked, "Seniors, I can pay a ransom to buy my life. If you are not worried, the Spirit Snake Sect can deliver it in person. I wonder if you can let me live. A ransom for a life, what can you offer?" Zhou Daocheng asked in a low voice. Chen Jinyang felt extremely stressed and looked extremely troubled. He hesitated for a long time before tentatively asking, "I wonder what you seniors need, spiritual stones, pills, or talismans. I wonder, are there any formation materials?" Zhou Daocheng turned his eyes and asked meaningfully. Chen Jinyang was stunned for a moment, remembering the two formations he had seen before, and immediately reacted, looking at Zhou Daocheng with even more awe, and asked, as the senior a formation master. Meng Yushan kicked him hard and said coldly, "Don't ask questions that you shouldn't ask, and answer honestly." This kick to the chest made Chen Jinyang, who was already seriously injured, immediately turn purple, blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth again, and his rough face was full of nervousness. Zhou Daocheng stepped forward at the right time to stop Meng Yushan's rough action, and said in a relatively gentle tone, "It's okay. Although I am not a formation master, there is an amazing senior in the sect who is proficient in one or two formations." "It's true." Chen Jinyang's eyes lit up. Although he had guessed this in his heart, he was still surprised when the other party said it in person. "To be honest, Senior, our Lingxi sect occupies several first-level mines, and there are many materials suitable for refining qi and formations. If Senior doesn't mind, I can use a batch of formation materials as ransom. I wonder what Senior thinks." Chen Jinyang was humble and almost lowered his status to the lowest. Zhou Daocheng looked at him calmly and said, "How can I trust you?" Chen Jinyang's eyes turned and he smiled, "Senior, if we are just strangers, we naturally cannot trust each other, but if we are in a cooperative relationship, can you trust me?" Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng's heart moved, a smile appeared on his face, and he thought to himself, "I've taken the bait." From the beginning to the end, whether it was killing the Qi family cultivators to show his strength, or pretending to be the powerful Shanhai sect, Zhou Daocheng had only one goal, that is, to cooperate with the Spirit Snake sect. There are many ways to cooperate, and if you can cooperate as a formation master, the benefits will be maximized. However, on the surface, Zhou Daocheng still showed a calm attitude and asked calmly, "What does cooperative relationship mean?" Chen Jinyang grinned and said, "To be honest with you Senior, our Spirit Snake sect does have a lot of materials, but because we are not proficient in the art of cultivating immortals, we can only sell them to other forces at low prices. But if Senior is willing, we can reach a cooperation and we will provide formation materials to you, Senior." But can we buy some formations at a low price? Zhou Daocheng's face was crooked with a smile, but he still suppressed his excitement. After thinking silently for a few seconds, he asked in a deep voice, "Can you represent the Spirit Snake sect? Such a benefit is something that the masters and elders of our spiritual snake sect must be looking for. As long as I contact them, cooperation will not be a problem." Chen Jinyang's eyes showed a hint of expectation. If this cooperation can be negotiated, it will be a great achievement. Zhou Daocheng did not agree rashly. He took a sip of tea casually and said calmly, "If you sincerely cooperate, I can ask the elders for instructions. I am quite thin in Shanhaizong, so it shouldn't be a problem. But..." Then he changed his tone and said, "However, our Shanhaizong is not without partners. Most of the formations will be sold to other forces. We can only sell a small part to you, and the quality will not be too high." Hearing this, Chen Jinyang's face stiffened, and he asked with a slightly embarrassed look, "I wonder, what is the specific quality and quantity?" "First class mid-grade, no more than 3 sets per year. Isn't this a little bit less, and if it's just a first-order mid-level formation?" Chen Jinyang seemed to want to say something, but was worried about causing dissatisfaction, so he asked carefully, "Senior, can the types of these 3 formations be the same as those that killed the Qi family monks before?" I can't blame Chen Jinyang for making such a request, because in the world of immortal cultivation, even if they are both formation masters, they are proficient in different formations. More or less, each of them is particularly good at it, or has a unique formation diagram. In Chen Jinyang's view, that kind of powerful formation that is obviously only the first level mid-level, but can kill the 8th level of Qi refining, and even rivals the 9th level of Qi refining, is undoubtedly the unique formation of Shanhai sect, and naturally has the greatest value. Zhou Daocheng smiled and nodded, approvingly, "I didn't expect you to be quite discerning. The golden splitting formation is not an ordinary formation. However, we are new to the Shanhai sect and you are the first force to cooperate with us. I can promise you, but in terms of formation materials..." Chen Jinyang smiled excitedly and said, "Don't worry, Senior, I will never treat you badly with the formation materials, but I can't make the final decision on the specific transaction process. I have to inform the elders of the sect. Forget it, you send a message back to the sect and let them talk in person." Chen Jinyang did not hesitate, took the communication stone handed by Meng Yushan, and contacted the elders of the Spirit Snake sect under the watchful eyes of several people. In fact, this approach is very risky. If Chen Jinyang has evil intentions, it may bring the danger of overturning to the valley. However, if he does not take the wrong approach, Balin Lake will also need to face the crisis of destruction in the future. Rather than being forced to invade, it is better to take the initiative and pave the way for the future. Moreover, it now seems that Chen Jinyang has no doubts about the identity of Shanhaizong, and the possibility of success is not small. Chen Jinyang notified the elders of the sect of everything that happened, including the attack by the Qi family, the Shanhai sect's action to kill the Qi family monks, and the cooperation in formations. In the Blackwater Swamp, a sect hidden in the deep forest gathered several strong men from the Spirit Snake sect. The leader was wearing a black robe and had an elegant appearance. He was in his early 30s. He was surrounded by a huge black snake-like monster with a powerful aura. Sect Master, the information sent back by Deacon Chen is completely consistent with the situation we have discovered, and we should be able to believe it. An old elder whispered back. The sect leader sitting at the head looked neither happy nor sad. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said with a hint of confusion, "Do you know anything about this so-called Shanhai sect?" Several elders of the 9th level of Qi refining looked at each other, unable to explain for a while, so they had no choice but to reply, "I have never heard of it, but there are so many powerful sects in the world, and it is normal for some of them we don't know." Another person also echoed. Indeed, according to what Director Chen said, the other party accidentally discovered a first-order high-grade spiritual vein, so he moved here. It was not originally a force in this area, and the original owner of that spiritual vein is said to be the Tianchishan Zhou family. The sect leader nodded slightly. The source of the spiritual veins was clear, which made him let go of his vigilance. "In that case, what do you think of this cooperation? It's all beneficial and no harm," an old elder said seriously. "Our Spirit Snake sect has been inherited for hundreds of years and has a lot of mineral resources. However, its power has increased slowly, and its wealth is far less than that of the Mo Yunshanqi family. The main reason is that it does not have the assistance of immortal cultivation skills. So we can only sell the ore materials at low prices, and then spend a lot of money to buy elixirs, magic weapons, and talismans. The actual annual profits and losses have long been beyond our means. If we can reach this cooperation, it will be of great benefit to our development. Furthermore, I heard from Chen Jinyang's description that this Shanhaizong is proficient in the art of formations. One of the formations is obviously only a first-level mid-grade, but its power can directly kill an 8th-level qi refining expert. If we can trade it, it can be greatly improved. Improve our strength. When the sect leader heard this, he couldn't help but his eyes lit up. After thinking for a long time, he said, "Well, in that case, the second elder will be responsible for this cooperation. If the Shanhai sect is indeed as mysterious as Deacon Chen said, from now on you need to make good friends." The next day, the people of the Spirit Snake sect rushed to the valley with a batch of materials. It was the first time for the two sides to meet, and both Zhou Daocheng and the second elder of the Spirit Snake sect were extremely cautious. Outside the valley, Zhou Daocheng saw an old man in black robes, with a withered and cold face and a restrained and powerful aura. Chen Jinyang had recovered a little at that time, and because of the conversation yesterday, he was more familiar with Zhou Daocheng and others, and took the initiative to introduce, "Senior, this is Han Yi, the second elder of my Spirit Snake sect. Elder Han, this is the senior of Shanhai sect I mentioned in the message." Han Yi looked calm and glanced at the people in front of him lightly, but when he saw Zhou Daocheng, his expression could not help but change slightly. He could clearly sense the strength of the other three men in black. All of them were strong men of the 8th level of qi refining, which was already very strong. However, he could not see through the strength of the leader. It was like hitting a towering mountain, heavy and full of power. The quality of Zhou Daocheng's practice is far superior to Han Yi's, and the quality of his magic power is extraordinary. If he does not actively display his aura, it will be almost impossible for Qigong practitioners to see through it. While Han Yi was sizing up, Zhou Daocheng was also sizing up the person in front of him. The world had reached the 9th level of qi refining, which made him feel stressed. Han Yi looked at him for a long time and finally couldn't figure out the strength of the person in front of him. He thought to himself, this person's aura is extremely strong. Could it be that he is a strong foundation builder? But it seems a little worse. Could it be that he is at the 9th level of qi refining like me? It's really strange why I can't see through his strength. After pondering for a moment, he finally bowed respectfully and said, "I am Han Yi of the Spiritual Snake Sect. I am here this time to discuss cooperation with my seniors." Zhou Daocheng glanced at him coldly and said calmly, "Before we talk about cooperation, let's talk about the ransom first. You, a junior from the Spirit Snake Sect, invaded our sect and should have been killed directly. Sparing his life is already for you, face." Han Yi's face froze. When they were looking for Chen Jinyang's traces, they saw the traces left by Nadu. The terrifying scene was unforgettable to them. The person in front of me said that he spared Chen Jinyang's life, which was not an arrogant statement. "Senior, we have prepared the ransom. Here are 300 pounds of first-order middle-grade gold and iron stones, as well as some common formation materials." As he said that, Han Yi flicked his right hand, and a batch of neatly cut metals appeared on the ground, as well as a lot of formation materials, all of which were first level and mid-grade. Zhou Daocheng just took a casual look at it and couldn't help but feel excited. This kind of golden sword ironstone was of high quality, better than the material used in the previous golden sword formation, and could be used to make metallic formations. If you buy these formation materials at the market, it is conservatively estimated to cost 500 spirit stones. On the surface, Zhou Daocheng deliberately kept a calm expression. After looking at it for a few times, he put it directly into his storage bag. Then, he directly released his control on Chen Jinyang and pushed him in front of the old man in black. Seeing that the other party was still abiding by the rules, Han Yi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the other party was a reasonable person, it would be easier to discuss subsequent cooperation. "Senior, Deacon Chen has taken the liberty of disturbing you. Although the ransom has been paid, Han still has to apologize to you for him." Han Yi bowed respectfully, which put an end to the previous unpleasantness. Zhou Daocheng nodded with satisfaction. This person knew how to deal with people and spoke very measuredly, so it was naturally much easier for him to talk. Forget it, let's forget about it. There are a lot of seniors. Why don't Chen Jinyang quickly express his thanks? Chen Jinyang also bowed respectfully and thanked him without hesitation. After the matter was revealed, Han Yi relaxed completely, and today's conversation had gone smoothly so far. Senior, I heard that the Shanhai sect is a major formation sect, so in addition to Chen Jinyang's matter, our Spirit Snake sect also wants to talk to our seniors about formation cooperation. Zhou Daocheng's heart tightened and he said in a deep voice, Your Excellency, you can tell me in detail. Our Shanhai sect is not lacking in cooperation. If the conditions are too harsh, I'm afraid we won't be able to agree. Han Yi's face lit up and he said, Senior, I definitely come here with sincerity. The Spirit Snake sect has many resources similar to mineral veins and can provide basic materials for laying out formations. I hope to exchange them for some different types of formations. Zhou Daocheng thought about it and found that this was exactly what he needed. I wonder which of the resources the Spirit Snake sect has can be supplied in large quantities for a long time. Han Yi was well prepared and explained. There are 3 resources that can be provided for a long time and in large quantities. They are Jin Jie Iron Stone, Giant Scale Bamboo, and Fire Lang Stone. The quality is all first-level mid-grade. These 3 first-level mid-grade materials are not particularly precious, but they are not cheap resources either. Zhou Daocheng seems to be very good. Okay, how about 100 kilograms of Jin Jie Iron Stone and Fire Lang Stone, 20 giant scale bamboos, and 2 sets of first-order mid-level formations every year. Zhou Daocheng gave his own conditions. But when he said these words, Han Yi's face looked very ugly, as if he was hesitant to speak. Senior, is this price too high? Zhou Daocheng glanced at him lightly, and the price he said was indeed not low. It would cost more than 2,000 spiritual stones in exchange for spiritual stones. However, he also had many considerations when proposing this price. First of all, ore materials cannot be used directly. They need to undergo subsequent refining and purification. It is already good to get 10 kilograms of finished product from 100 kilograms of ore. Secondly, the Spirit Snake sect has mineral veins. For them, the price of raw materials is relatively cheap. Although 100 kilograms is a lot, it is definitely not a burden. Finally, and the most important point is to have enough confidence in the quality of the tactics. The formation created using the fusion formation technology has more powerful power and diverse functions while maintaining the same quality. These advantages are unmatched by other formations. Zhou Daocheng did not make any concessions, but said calmly, Chen Xiaoyu has already seen the power of the formation, and he knows best whether it is worth the price. Han Yi glanced at Chen Jinyang, only to see him nod fiercely, and said seriously, Elder Han, that kind of formation is really special. With first-level mid-level quality, it can easily kill 2 strong men at the 8th level of qi refining. It is definitely worth it. Quote. When Han Yi heard this, he rolled his eyes angrily, glared at Chen Jinyang, and almost wanted to kick him away. I don't know how powerful the formation is. I haven't seen the traces caused by the formation. But this is negotiation, you have to negotiate for a lower price. Otherwise, others will think you are being taken advantage of. As a result, this stupid kid said, Old man, how can I lower the price? Han Yi sighed helplessly, feeling powerless, and said helplessly, Senior, if they are all the formations with power far exceeding ordinary first-level medium-quality formations, this price is appropriate, but, can the quantity be increased? We can provide more materials. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but twitch his mouth. It seems that his price is still too low. The amount of materials that the other party can produce every year is definitely not small. However, he did not plan to increase the quantity. 2 sets a year is already the limit. More will affect his own practice. Moreover, he also needs to keep some formations for himself to improve his strength. Let's leave it at that for now. The sect still has cooperation with other forces. If there is a chance in the future, it won't be too late to increase the number of transactions. Han Yi wanted to pull it again, but Zhou Daocheng chose to send him away directly and ended the conversation behind closed doors. The cooperation was finalized. The Spirit Snake sect would send the raw materials every year, and Zhou Daocheng would also provide 2 sets of cracked gold formations. The cooperation officially started at the end of the year. When everything was discussed and Han Yi left with Chen Jinyang, Zhou Daocheng breathed a sigh of relief. A cooperative relationship like this is like walking on a tightrope at high altitude. If you are not careful, you may reveal your flaws. But fortunately, the contact time between the 2 sides was short, and the powerful power of the golden splitting formation was used to shock the Spirit Snake sect, which made the cooperation go smoothly. Meng Yushan sat down on the stone, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said, "It's finally over. The other party is a 9th level qi refining expert. He can kill 4 of us alone. You are really brave, sir." Zhou Daocheng just smiled. Such an adventure was really a helpless move. No matter how dangerous it is, at least it will be safe for the next period of time. The Spirit Snake sect has reached a cooperation with us, so it will naturally not attack us again. The Qi family has lost many members, and they will not attack again in the short term. It should be safe for a while. Qin Lai also nodded and said, "Moreover, with the formation provided by the young master, the Spirit Snake sect may be able to turn defeat into victory in the scramble for the nearby mineral vein." Zhou Daocheng stretched lazily, took off his black robe casually, threw it to Meng Yushan on the side, and said, "In the next period of time, you should intensify your practice, improve your strength as soon as possible, and strive to make the Shanhai sect a truly powerful force. After all, fake is fake after all, only strength is the truth." Time flies, and several months have passed in a flash. During this period of time, Zhou Daocheng has been practicing and refining formations in the underground cave. With the supply of rich spiritual energy, his strength has reached the late 7th level of qi refining. At the same time, a batch of arrays were made, including 3 sets of gold splitting array, 1 set of thorn vine array, and 1 set of golden spear vine array. 3 sets of gold splitting array, 2 of which were used for cooperation with the Spirit Snake sect. The 2 parties have successfully completed a transaction, and the remaining set was left in the valley to improve their strength. Thorn vine array, because many yellow thorn vines have reached the 1st level middle grade, Zhou Daocheng had nothing to do to refine a set of them, wanting to see how powerful they are. However, the result was a bit disappointing. The thorn vine array, which was mainly used to trap the enemy, only had 3 thorn vines inside, and the control effect was not obvious, and the attack strength was also average. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng subsequently created a new array Golden Spear Vine Array by means of Fusion Array. Golden Spear Vine Array, which was formed by the fusion of Golden Knife Array and Thorn Vine Array, wrapped with a layer of Golden Spear on the thorn vines. Although the control ability was not greatly improved, the attack strength was increased a lot. Unlike the instantaneous burst of the Gold Split Array, the Golden Vine Array is like a violent storm, exerting continuous attacks, and can artificially control the swinging of thorny vines, which can cooperate with the battle to a great extent. To a certain extent, the effect of the Golden Vine Array is better than the Gold Split Array. After all, although the Gold Split Array has stronger attack power, it cannot be controlled. It is an indiscriminate attack and there are many uncertainties in its use. On the contrary, the Golden Vine Array is more stable. Moreover, there is another very important point, the materials required for this formation. They are golden sword ironstone and yellow thorn vine. Zhou Daocheng has them all, and in large quantities. According to Zhou Daocheng's idea, the Golden Vine Array will become the mainstream of the battle next, and the Gold Split Array will be used as a backup to cooperate with each other. As for cooperative sales, both can be sold. However, Zhou Daocheng does not intend to sell formations such as the Earth Guard Spirit Array that incorporate the Gathering Spirit Array because the characteristics are too obvious. Whether it is the Golden Vine formation or the Splitting Gold formation, at least the use is not much different from the normal formation, and it will not attract attention. However, the Earth Control Spirit formation is completely different. It can operate independently for a long time without the need for spirit stones or the input of mana from the cultivators. Once this formation is leaked, it will immediately attract a lot of attention, which is definitely not what Zhou Daocheng wants to see. Now the overall development is stable, and the valley has become more and more perfect under the development of Meng Yushan and others. Originally messy, it is now full of traces of life, with green spiritual plants everywhere, and even some green bamboo and flowers planted for decoration, truly becoming a valley suitable for survival and cultivation. Moreover, at the suggestion of Zhou Daocheng, this valley also has its own name, Secluded Valley. The Shanhai sect, which was casually mentioned, has become more and more perfect now, and even under the intentional or unintentional spread of the spirit snake sect, it has become a real force. However, perhaps because of the fear of causing displeasure to the Shanhai sect, the Lingxi sect did not advertise it widely, so only a few people knew that there was a suspected powerful sect deep in this mountain range. This is exactly what Zhou Daocheng hopes to achieve. Spread the reputation of the Shanhai sect in a weak and slow way. As its own strength becomes stronger and stronger, the Shanhai sect will naturally enter the field of vision of the public. And in the subsequent planning, if you want to continue to sell the formation and obtain a large number of spirit stones, you must have a suitable identity. And the name of the Shanhai sect is the most suitable choice. At the same time, in recent times, another important thing has happened, that is, the competition for the nearby mineral vein has gradually come to an end. The Lingxi sect has encountered the final victory. According to the intelligence discovered by Meng Yushan, the Lingxi sect used the Golden Split Formation to severely trick the Qi family. While destroying a Golden Split Formation, it killed a 9th level Qi refining and 2 8th level Qi refining people, causing the Qi family to suffer heavy losses and eventually withdraw under pressure. Therefore, the two sides also forged a deadly feud, and the contradiction further intensified. The terrifying power displayed by the gold-splitting formation also opened the eyes of the leader and elders of the Spirit Snake sect. They never thought that they could kill the 9th level of Qi refining with a set of first-level medium-grade formations. Although there were many other factors in the process, the role of the gold-splitting formation was indelible, and even accounted for a large part of the credit. After this experience, the Spirit Snake sect was more curious about this mysterious sect, and in the curiosity, there was also fear and awe. What's more, this is only a first-level mid-level formation. How powerful is the first-level, high-level and second-level formation? Therefore, after occupying this mineral vein, the Spirit Snake sect made a decision to further deepen the cooperation between the two parties and establish a good relationship with the Shanhai sect as much as possible. Originally, they only planned to send a group of mining teams over after occupying this mineral vein, and did not plan to invest more manpower and material resources here. After all, the headquarters of the Spirit Snake sect is far away from here, and the value of the mine itself is not particularly high. However, because of the Shanhai sect, they directly changed their original plan and chose to build a base here, turning this place into an important branch in order to better cooperate with the Shanhai sect. The managers of the branch are none other than Elder Chen Jinyang and Han Yi, who had interacted with Zhou Daocheng before. After Zhou Daocheng learned about the situation, he couldn't help but have black lines on his head and shouted that seniors don't have to be like this. He was really flattered. The addition of a neighbor next to him really restricted his daily development, and he had to be more cautious in all aspects of his actions. He could only blame the spiritual snake sect for being too enthusiastic. In order not to be discovered, Zhou Daocheng also had to consider whether to expand again and add some manpower to the valley. But now it is close to the end of the year, and it is a time of tedious affairs. We have to sell the Yuehua wine brewed this year, and we have to consider returning to Tianqi Mountain to report the harvest of the year. So even if we have plans, they will probably be postponed until next year. Walking into the cellar of the underground cave, the rich aroma of wine came to my nose. Dozens of jars of Yuehua wine were piled here, all of which were harvested this year, a total of 32 jars. Because of the irrigation of the spiritual spring, the Yuehua grass was harvested in advance, and it was brewed early and stored in the warehouse for precipitation. At this time, the aroma of the wine was very strong. I didn't expect that there would be 2 more jars. I just sold 30 jars, and the remaining 2 jars can be used by myself. Zhou Daocheng thought silently, in a very good mood. Spiritual wine is also a very precious cultivation resource. It can be regarded as a luxury in the world of cultivation. It is very beneficial to cultivation. It can improve magic power and regulate the body. It is sought after by a large number of cultivators. Zhou Daocheng is not greedy for wine, but leaving 2 jars for himself to drink is also a good choice for breaking through the realm. It is best to use it with Zhao Yunji for better results. The remaining 30 jars of Yuehua brew can be sold for 1,500 lingxi, which is a considerable gain, enough to complete this year's lingxi target. 1,200 of them will be handed over to the family, and the remaining 300 will be kept for personal use. Just as he was thinking, the communication stone in his arm suddenly trembled slightly. Zhou Daocheng took it out and saw that it was a message from Zhao Yunji. Zhou Daocheng, the silk inner armor needs to be sold in the market. Do you have time to go together? Zhou Daocheng secretly said that it was a coincidence. He just needed to sell Yuehua brew, and Zhao Yunji also wanted to sell silk inner armor. It was just right to go to the market together, so that they could take care of each other along the way. For his cheap wife, Zhou Daocheng occasionally visited her in the past 6 months, accumulated a small wisp of innate purple energy, and also improved their relationship. After the two agreed, they went to Baihei market together. Worried about encountering danger, they also brought Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan with them. Compared with the past, Zhou Daocheng's strength is much better now, and his safety is guaranteed. After all, he carries 2 sets of first-level medium-grade array plates, and they are fusion arrays, splitting gold array and golden vine array. The other set of splitting gold array was left to Qinlai to protect the valley. Even without powerful magic tools, elixirs and talismans, and without exquisite spells, Zhou Daocheng's strength is still not weak. Even if he fights against the 9th level of qi refining, he does not need to be afraid. What's more, there are Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan around him, and their strength is also good. Zhou Daocheng sat on the boat, and Meng Yushan rowed the boat towards Zhao Yunji's island. Zhao Yunji, wearing a white gauze skirt and carrying a small bag, stood on the edge of the island, elegant and calm. Seeing Zhou Daocheng coming, Zhao Yunji nodded, then threw the backpack over without any hesitation, and said coldly, "Put it in your storage bag." "Okay, Aunt Yunji." Zhao Yunji's forehead jumped slightly, and she coldly rolled her eyes at Zhou Daocheng, shook her head helplessly, and ignored Zhou Daocheng's bad taste, but turned to look at Meng Yushan and the others. Just a quick glance, she couldn't help but change her eyes, and was secretly surprised in her heart. Another qi refining level 8. She looked at Zhou Daocheng meaningfully, as if shrouded in a layer of fog, making her a little confused for a while. Zhou Daocheng had already made psychological preparations after keenly noticing Zhao Yunji's gaze, and said casually, "This is my old friend Meng. Because he was short of money, he followed me to work, but he was conquered by my personality charm and was willing to follow me." Your reason is better not to explain. Zhou Daocheng smiled and didn't care. Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan were not secrets. Even if they were exposed, there was a reason to explain, saying that they were casual cultivators he met nearby. On the contrary, other secrets of his own, such as Wutu Kun Yu Gong, the inheritance of the formation, and Sun and Moon Sutra, must not be leaked. Before leaving, Zhou Daocheng also specifically told Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan not to reveal the formation, otherwise he would kill them both and soak them in wine. Such an inhumane threat, the two naturally did not dare to reveal a word. The 4 left Balin Lake and entered the dense primitive jungle as usual. However, they did not find that a pair of eyes hidden in the dark were secretly paying attention to the whereabouts of the 4. Haha, Tianqi Mountain Zhou family, really a good method. The sinister eyes stared at the direction where the 4 left, like a poisonous tongue spitting out letters, brewing a fatal blow. Another slightly mature voice sounded. "Yunxiao, is the information you found accurate?" "Uncle San, don't you still believe me?" On that day, Uncle 16 ambushed the deacon of the Spirit Snake sect, and it was almost certain to succeed, but he was framed by thieves in the middle of the way, and finally died here. The only force nearby that might have participated was the Zhou family. The man called Uncle San, with a calm gaze like a pool of water, silently examined the 4 people who were leaving, and said, "Then do you know that the family has found some other information?" "What information?" "A mysterious force, Shanghai sect." A sneer appeared on the man's face. "It's really strange, it's not only the Balin Lake of the Zhou family, but also the headquarters of the Shanghai sect, and there is also the mysterious formation. What is hidden here?" Qi Yunxiao's expression changed again and again when he heard this. Although he didn't know the specific situation, he also knew that the story behind it was not simple. "Uncle San, should we go into Balin Lake to take a look?" There must be a secret hidden here, and the Zhou family kid has left. This is the best opportunity. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment, and said in a deep tone, "Don't take risks. If the so-called Shanghai sect really exists, even if my strength reaches the 9th level of qi refining, it will be difficult to compete with it. This muddy water cannot be touched. Then what should we do? Did we suffer this loss in vain?" Qi Yunxiao roared with a slightly hoarse voice, his eyes full of bloodshot. "Yunxiao, this is the first time you leave the family to do things. It is normal to feel unwilling after failure, but failure is the norm in cultivation. You still need to polish your character." The middle-aged man frowned, and he had discovered the defects of his nephew's character. Although he is extremely talented, his character is extreme. Qi Yunxiao's eyes were red, and he gritted his teeth, saying word by word, "I can tolerate failure, but I absolutely cannot tolerate an unclear defeat, and I am defeated by a Zhou family fool." As the young master of the Qi family, this time he helped the family to rob this vein. He invested a lot of manpower and material resources and came with the purpose of only success, not failure. In order to complete the task better, the clansmen sent were all direct relatives of Qi Yunxiao, but in the end, they lost many elders at the 8th level of qi refining and left here in disgrace. This huge gap made Qi Yunxiao unable to sleep or eat. "Uncle San, if this matter cannot be resolved, it will definitely become a demon in my heart in the future, and it will be difficult for me to improve my strength. Please help me this time. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."